Morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, our mayor is via Zoom tonight, so you are stuck with me. So let's start off. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll call you to George.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, shall call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hewlin. Here. Parker.
Present.
Dalby.
Here.
Schroeder.
Present.
Beach.
Here.
Richardson.
Present.
Mayor Erickson.
Here.
All righty, so we will move on to public comment. If anybody has any questions or things they'd like to say, please come on up to the microphone, and if you will give us your name and address, we'll move on from there. You on? All righty. Move on to the consent agenda. I know we've got some folks want to pull a couple of things here, so let's move on there. Heather, you want to pull claims?
Yes, please. B.
I'd
Okay.
also like to pull 5E 1 through 6.
Okay, we can do that. Any other comments? I have a motion to approve what's left. We have the approval of the agenda, monthly transfers, and we have approval of payment application number 19 and approval of liquor license for On the Rocks.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Beach.
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
All righty, we'll move on to the claims then. Let's take a motion to approve first, and then we'll get to discussion. Shall we do that?
Move to approve the claims.
All right, second. All right, discussion. Heather, you need to pull that, is that correct? Anybody
Yes.
else have anything on
Yep.
the
I'm
claims?
pulling.
I have one item. Charlie, can you, on the absolute concrete payment, you and I talked about the punch list. Will you kind of say where we are at on that punch list item?
Yeah, so before we had completely opened up phase one, our staff and as well as Bolton and Mink went through with the contractor, just walked through the project with various items. And I know our engineer who is observing the project, is here as well too, and he can speak to anything in particular if it's there, but we do have a punch list item that they are going to have to resolve before the project is complete. And again, remember that's in 2023. A lot of it, trees aren't in yet. There's a lot of benches, trash receptacles still are on order. Streetlights aren't completely finished out yet, just because we have some temp streetlights up now. There was some, I believe, caulking between the buildings and the sidewalks that still needs to be completed. But just based off where we were in the season, a lot of that did need to be pushed off until we had warmer weather. So.
Okay. One other item I'm going to ask you to kind of explain here for a moment, if you would. The safe building compliance and technology claim that's in our packet here tonight. Will you explain what the situation was with that and kind of go forward with it?
Yeah, so I think council's aware, we've got a pretty small staff here at the city, and there's a lot of what I'll call safeguards we have in place in case certain staff members are out. Safe Building actually provides the city with two services that we have contracts for. It's both plan review for building permits that we get in, as well as backup inspection services. So when our building official, who is just one person, is either on vacation or out sick, we will use Safe Build to do inspections for the most part. So we are not delaying any building projects that are going on with the city. All of those projects that we have going on, we'll get typically a 24-hour notice on that, that they need an inspection, and it's really crucial for us to hit that time frame so we can keep these projects moving forward.
So it
So,
doesn't cost contractors money.
yep. So
Okay.
that the fee that's on there, and I don't have it right in front of me. I know it was a couple thousand. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was about 2.5 weeks worth of inspection services that were done.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions on the claims? We have a motion and a second. Jackie, you want to call the roll, please?
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Recuse.
Parker.
Aye.
All right, so we got items 5E, 1 through 6. Ron, what's your questions?
So we have 6 items here where we are setting dates for public hearing, but there aren't any dates on these 6 items. And I think we should be adding dates to these 6 items.
Okay. Charlie, you want to tell
Yeah,
us what
we-
the dates are for those, please?
Yeah, and they're up on the screen here as well. And really quick on that point, we have discussed that internally. We'll start putting the dates on all those public hearings. That's a really easy change for us to do. But to summarize all of them, the first one that is on the agenda, the public hearing for the infrastructure project on West Boston, North F and West Clinton, that one is on February 22nd. So that'll be your second council meeting in February. The balance of the public hearings will all be at your next meeting on February 7th.
So anyone that wants to attend and learn about what's going on in West Boston, North F, and West Clinton, the public hearing on the 22nd is their opportunity to
Yes.
speak if they have questions or ask questions.
Do
Yeah.
neighbors get notices on this, or like residents of those streets get notices?
I don't think we send out notices on individual. AP, if you don't mind, yeah, I'll let AP handle that one.
Basically, you're just asking to have the dates put in the headings.
Yeah,
They're
yes.
they're in the memorandum.
Right, but they're not
Yeah.
published, and that's what we want to do and move forward.
It's in the memorandum right here that's published
Well,
in our packets. I mean, it's
I
just
don't
not in
think it
there.
went out. Did that go out to the public that those
Yeah.
dates were on?
That's all, yeah, that's all public.
They get the
You can
packet.
get through that on our
Yeah, it's all
website,
right
yeah.
there, so.
Yeah, and they're in the actual resolution, they're in the memo portion of it, they're just not on the agenda highlight. And again, it's relatively a simple change for us,
Right,
just
so
to make sure
John,
they're
what
on
I
there.
was looking to do is also make sure the people that might be listening or zooming in or whatever the case is, they have the opportunity to know this.
Yeah, they can go get it right off the website. It's all right there. I mean, if they're looking at the agenda, they're gonna they can look at the resolution.
Go ahead, AP.
So on this one, like Councilmember John Mark mentioned, it's mentioned on the council packet that we have had public meetings regarding this project where we have invited residents to the public meeting. We have given them an approximate time frame. Right before the construction, we will send out notices to residents again, informing them when the construction will begin.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions, Ron?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
If it's okay with everybody, I'll take a motion to approve items 5E, 1 through 6.
So moved.
I got a second? Thank you. Ron, clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
and Hewlin.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Shaw, I believe you are up.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
report.
Councilmember. Report that should be in front of you should be for the month of December 2021, which is actually the 6th month of the 21-22 year, which means we're halfway through the year. I think that one of the things I try to do is compare this December with last December, see what kind of growth we've had. And in the first section, which is the general fund, we're up about 475,000. Some of them are up. For example, the police is up about 413,000, but some of them would also be down. And then something that I personally try to follow closely is that local option sales tax line. And over December of 20, we're up just about $750,000. And then I think about the only other one that I look at very much is the health insurance. And at one time that had kind of fallen down, but over a year ago, it's up 475,000. And then if you look at the bottom in the left-hand corner, we have some $44 million to account for. And that's probably up $10 million over last year. But some of that has to do with the debt that we have issued, whether it be streetscape or the sewer project or K Street, you know, whatever the situation might be. And so we've issued the debt, we just haven't spent it yet on a particular project. Interest rates are down just a little bit. The first category, which is Bankers Trust, has about 26 million in it. That interest rate a year ago was 1.82, now it's 1.43. I think the rest of the interest rates are about the same. If you listen to what's going on in the great America, I think probably interest rates are going to creep up here because of serious, well, I can't say serious, but inflation. You know. Anyway, that would be my report to you, Council, subject to questions.
Any questions for the director?
Hi Doug, I had a question here. So on the downtown revolving loan, the downtown biz program, what's the difference between those two?
You know, and I'm going to have Andy speak also, but one of those programs, I think, is where we're paying back IDECD.
So Fund 160 was a revolving loan that we might have been used for something else before I got here, but as soon as I got here, the city had taken on a revolving loan with the Iowa Economic Development Agency to help repair a couple of buildings downtown. And what we're using that fund right now is to receive the payments from those two businesses to pay back IEDA. We have like 2 or 3 payments left on that. And then the 161 is our downtown biz, where we work with banks, and this was before I got here, where the city would loan money to a business to do repairs or improvements. And then this money would be in a CD and then at a bank, either People's or City State or True Bank. And then the business would repay, and then the money would be sent to the city, and the city would pay for the interest. So basically the business is getting a no interest loan to repairs or improvements at their business. We haven't done any loans like that for a while. However, in FY23, the plan is to use that fund balance towards a facade program, 125,000 towards a facade program to help businesses on the square to make improvements.
And I think before Andy's time, and Councilman Richardson might have been here, but it did have a loan program and a grant program kind of tied together. It was a good program, but it's been a bit since.
Yeah, I think there was some state money involved as well, so. Any other questions for Doug at this point in time? Motion to receive the treasurer's report.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Is this a roll call, Jackie? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Thank you.
Passes.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you.
All right, so your EMS billing report, are you up on this or is? You have questions? Okay,
Move to approve.
okay, got a second?
Second?
Okay, discussion here then? Good. Anything you need to,
No, you've got the report for me, council, where it's a monthly report, comes out from our billing company, which has gone through another merger. This is the second merger since I have been here. So they have transformed now into Digitech. Digitech is a pretty large company across the nation. More happy to answer your
Service
questions on.
and rates are the same.
Yes,
You feel good?
yeah, we're contracted with them now for 3 more years.
Okay. Just want to make sure everything's still
Yeah,
good with them.
no, good.
you okay with that change as far as the service and everything?
Yeah, we still have the same account managers.
Okay.
That we've had.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody?
So it looks like, between October and November, the bank balance went up, 54,000. Is that like common? Is that normal for it to increase that much on a monthly basis?
That's not common.
Not common.
You have to understand the bill. We don't know who's gonna get hurt on a monthly basis, how many times we're gonna go out. I can give you averages and say, yeah, we average anywhere from 200 to 250 responses in a month. Then from there, it's divided in what they call, and what you'll probably hear is called a payer mix. So that payer mix is actually the division of Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, and then basically a cash base. The percentages changes, it's fluid. I can tell you from historically, from what we had when we used to do the internal billing, and we had somebody in that was employed here. On average, we were 35 to 39,000 a month. Now we're anywhere from 50 to 70. But again, I don't know how many people we're going to transport.
Any other questions for our chief? Hearing none, thank you. Appreciate the time.
Greg,
Sorry, what?
I just said, thanks, Greg.
Oh, yeah, okay. We go ahead. Are we ready for a vote then? Okay, let's go ahead, Jackie.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye. And I'll make a motion to approve from the November billing for 2021 as well.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, second was Schroeder. Any discussion? Jackie?
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
All right. Now ready to move on to our esteemed interim police chief. So, Mr. Shearer.
Steam.
Yes.
Compliments like that, I don't want to go home.
There you go.
Mayor on the phone, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, thank you guys for having me here tonight, and I'm here to discuss body worn cameras, the long-awaited presentation. Purpose and history. So law enforcement agencies across the country and worldwide are using body worn cameras as a tool to improve law enforcement interaction with the public. The presence of body worn cameras helps strengthen accountability and transparency and can assist in de-escalating conflicts. A little bit on the history. I took over as interim in July of 2021, and I immediately met with the Department of Natural Resources Sergeant Craig Cutts to discuss body worn cameras. The Department of Natural Resources did a 3-year comprehensive study on these cameras. The first supervisors meeting we had was July 28th, and all of us in lockstep identified body worn cameras as a priority for the department. The reasons given at this meeting were officer safety, transparency, and public confidence in our department. From there, we relied on the DNR study. We contacted 2 companies that were in the study, one of them being Visual Labs and the other being Axon for field testing purposes. Both companies were great. We got cameras from both companies. We were allowed to field test for as long as we needed. In addition to those 2 companies, a third company was contacted, and it's Data 911, to meet the 3-bid requirement of council's units. Field tests were done on both cameras using a variety of lighting situations such as day and night, flashlight only, top light only. Every scenario that we could think of, we tested both of these cameras. In November of 2021, I think there were 5 officers involved using both cameras. I wanted feedback from them, so they provided in writing feedback on both systems. So the first company is Visual Labs, and these are the pretty hard numbers that we got from them. The first year is $29,409, and annually it will cost $25,989. Visual Labs uses a state certified cloud with unlimited storage. Big advantage. The one-time fees for Visual Labs include training access, which is $1,000, which means getting the application on the device. Mounting clips, different types of mounting. There's clips, there's pouches. We want the officers to have what they need, how they want it mounted. And another item is a Bluetooth switch. So sometimes with the phone, you try and fumble with that button in the winter when you got gloves on. There's a Bluetooth switch that can be mounted anywhere on your body. You just hit it. So those one-time fees are $3,420. The monthly operational costs. We would get 24 phones, but have 22 body cameras. I'll speak of that in a minute. The phones are free. It's a government contract. My administrative assistant is a wonderful person, and she talked them out of 24 phones. So that's great. But the fee for Verizon is $39.99 a month. For these phones would have hotspots, and the Visual Labs application, the actual body camera program, would be $53 a month. So the total monthly cost would be $2165.76. Another thing about Visual Labs is flexibility in contract. They're willing to have us sign whatever contract we're comfortable with. 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. That's a big plus. The second company we tested, Axon Body Camera 3, and annually it's about $31,000. Axon also uses a state certified cloud with unlimited storage. It's a good camera. Unfortunately, it's a 5-year contract only. So there's no flexibility in the contract. The last camera that we got a quote on for bidding purposes was the Data 911 body camera. It's cheaper annually. However, we would have to use our servers here to download to. There's no cloud-based storage, and that is a big negative. I know we're in the process right now of bidding out our servers, and that was not, what we're doing now for those servers was not including extra space for body cameras, so that price is inflated. So those are the three we looked at. We looked at 2 of them real hard, and 1 was just a bid. Our choice, Visual Labs. What I'm asking you here for today is permission to enter into a contract with Visual Labs. Be 22 body cameras plus 2 phones. I know we've had some sidebar discussions, and for transparency purposes, a lot of you have ridden with police officers and discovered that they use their personal phone for work purposes. Going with Visual Labs will fix 2 problems at once: getting body cameras and a work issue phone. Those 2 extra phones would be for the chief of police and the captain of police, but they would not have the body cameras attached to it. There's no reason for 2 people that work in the office to have that. So after careful consideration of all capabilities, hardware, software features, financial costs, mounting options, administrative needs, customer service, and contract flexibility, we've decided to select Visual Labs to be the provider of our body-worn cameras. As stated previously, the Visual Labs product allows for IPD officers to utilize the device as a phone, a digital camera, and to document scenes and evidence. Very important. One thing when doing research for this, we noted, this is the most telling slide of them all. Our comparable cities are in the employee handbook on page 44, where we compare ourselves to for union negotiations, other things. We're the only ones out. All of the comparable cities are utilizing body-worn cameras. That was kind of a surprise to us. So our next steps, if approved by council, the next step is to develop department policies for both body-worn camera and the phones. I have a draft body-worn camera policy that is ready to be reviewed by the administrative staff. We have a meeting coming up February 4th. And this is one thing I implement. It's not a dictatorship. We get input from everyone.
So we want to have a common sense policy that makes sense for Indianola about body worn cameras. We're also going to have a policy on department phone use. You can imagine what goes along with that. We anticipate having these policies completed in short order and approved and followed by the purchase and implementation, and we're hoping for less than 90 days. A couple things, if there's a consensus here, if there's direction, we'll bring a resolution and a contract forward to you as early as next meeting. The other side, Andy and I talked about this earlier, we are budgeted for July. We hope to implement this sooner if possible. And I'm open to any questions you guys might have.
How long of a contract are you thinking?
We discussed that today at our pre-meeting, and we want to do a year. That gives us enough time to make sure this is the right one for us. If there are any issues, you know, we can give the company time to figure out those issues if there are any problems.
Then going forward, if that's successful and you extend that out, do they update as part of the annual fees, updated cameras over time, or how does that work too?
So there's two different things here. The application that this company owns that's put on the phone is updated. And they always have new bells, whistles. I'm telling you, the software on this, it's incredible, this stuff. Completely incredible. I would point it out. The phone is the actual camera. So we would have to check into the government contract, how long we could sign that for, when we're available for help.
Okay.
That's the only thing I
Technology
would say.
changes.
Right, because
Yeah.
I've had, business issued phones and sometimes they're not updated, then that puts you at a disadvantage. But I think this is a wonderful, it's something I've been interested in for quite a while. And you and I've talked about it before. I'm glad you brought it forward. I know it's expensive, but I think it's really crucial to the safety of our force and our community.
Yeah, officer safety was definitely
Yep.
the top priority. There, not to get into the weeds on this, but if there's an officer in trouble, we can set where a supervisor can turn that camera on and see what's going on. If we see the camera laying on the ground, we know there's a problem. It's GPS, we can get to them as quick as possible. So there's
think
lots
that-
of features.
The safety is just imperative.
And there will never be any storage costs, because I listened to Paul Prezik talk and he said that's what's killing most places, is the amount of storage that you have to have and the
Right.
expense to that. So
No storage.
perfect.
I think the cloud storage was kind of a change for you, wasn't it? Because there was reluctance before when we talked about this.
Yeah, it was. When Chief Button was here, and this isn't, we just didn't start discussing this in July. I don't want to have that impression.
No,
We've discussed this for years, and that was one of the major drawbacks was storage. The other one was, some of the laws that go along with it. If I'm in a house and, I have a FOIA request, can I release that information with people in the background, children in it? This program on Visual Labs is, you can pixelate people with the click of a button.
So take everything out. that
Yeah.
isn't pertinent.
One of the things that we talked about, you and I, and also with the officer that wrote it, the fact that they were having to use their personal phones. In fact, one of the day that I rode with the officer, he had to call somebody, and we were at the site. We had to call somebody. He had to block his phone number so the person couldn't see his phone number, or he had to go back to the station, one of the two, to make a phone call. So I think it's really imperative that our officers have these things, these possibilities in hand so that they can use these phones and not use their personal phones. So I think this is a critical point too. Piggyback off the question that Gwen had, how long would we keep the videos from those if there's not a crime or something like that? Are they erased over a period of time then, or what's the deal with that?
We can set the parameters to whatever we want.
Okay.
Now, in writing our policy, I didn't reinvent the wheel. I'm a plagiarist like everyone else. They're all out there on the internet. So I mainly went off at Des Moines because Des Moines was pretty common sense. I mean, it just really was. You forget to turn your camera on. It happens. There's provisions in there. But also we can set, OWI 3 years, routine traffic stop 90 days. We can set it to exactly how we want it. Because at the end of an incident, I arrest someone for OWI, I get to tag that video. It's an OWI. There's drop downs, say OWI. And the program automatically knows this is a 3-year, this is a 4-year.
Okay.
Court cases take time, so we're always gonna err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
With unlimited storage, why not?
So then the other ones would, if you don't put a time limit on it, they drop off after a period of time, then is that what
If we set it that way, it could be 120 days, whatever. We want to always have that option to go back, you know.
Right.
Someone might complain on an officer, really might not do it that day, that week. Well, I wanted to tell you this, you know, it's been 30 days. We want to have that at our hands to press play and go, well,
Yeah.
now we see what happened.
Yeah, I got you.
What type of warranty comes with these phones? You know, our officers aren't just sitting behind a desk, you know, so they're in and out, and it's a physical job. So if one falls off a vest or
I didn't bring that with me, but I know it's prorated for breaks, lost, that sort of thing. You know, worst case scenario, we get 23 phones for free and we break one. We're not breaking the bank because we didn't pay for it.
Right.
But it is prorated. I think it's 1 year, 2 years. And these are S10s. The government contract is S10s, which, you know, they're not the most up to date, but they're right below. And to be honest, we tested several different types of phones, Curasias, I can't say that. Samsungs, different types of phones, and we landed on the S10 that had the best quality.
It sounds like you did your homework. I trust you did your due
We
diligence.
did 6 months of homework.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So budget wise, if we want to implement it before the budget year, Andy, how does that?
We'd have to check our Fund 190 and see if we need a budget amendment, including the last budget amendment. We'd like to do one at the end of the year. It's a little too late to include it in this one, but if we needed to include it in the last budget amendment, we just take care of it at that time.
Okay.
We did budget 5 years out of the CIP.
Right.
Starting.
Any other questions from council?
Brian, I have one actually. Did you say the carrier was Verizon?
Yes.
So I don't know how many people have Verizon up there, but there are kind of some dead spots in town with Verizon. I have Verizon myself, and I find that it's more on the west side and south of 92 maybe. Does that play into you know, any impact on them with using the body camera?
No.
Okay.
Once you hit record, the video is recording. Now, yeah, I have Verizon also, and occasionally you're going by the fairgrounds and you drop a call. That's when it would come into play if you're making a call and it's spotty service over there. But no,
Good to know that it doesn't affect that side.
For sure. And you hit record and it records.
Good. Okay.
Cellular calling, doesn't it work better in those dead zones?
You know, I haven't played with that.
We've had to do that because there are, like, when people come to our house, they can't get any reception. And so that seems to work. So not that that's an issue, obviously, but.
And the guys and girls, they know where the dead spots are in town driving around.
So you'd like a consensus from us, then? Is that what you'd like? John?
Yep, and I can bring you a
Brian?
resolution, Jackie, and contract from Visual Labs.
Okay. Anyone have an objection? I guess that's the one I start with.
I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Seems like a necessary
Okay.
tool.
Got your marching orders there, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brian.
Thank you, Stephanie.
All right, we have to receive and file the 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission annual report. So,
Move to approve.
second.
got a motion and a second. Jackie? Go ahead.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
All right, community update. Mayor, do you have any community updates you'd like to talk about? She's still there?
She's on mute.
Okay.
Stephanie, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So first off, thank you, Steve, for leading the meeting. Steve and I discussing, we felt it would be a little bit easier to have him leading it there versus me sitting in my hotel room in Las Vegas. I wanted to thank the streets department. I know they worked really hard over the week, and the weekend with all that snow, and especially Jackie and Charlie. Those are my thanks for the meeting. Jackie and Charlie have been working really hard, get me caught up to speed, and it's so much. And so they've been very helpful. Little highlight about kind of the last 2 weeks. We had Mayor's Youth Council last week, and we are currently in the process of planning Bike Fest for this summer. They have some great ideas, including maybe a dunk tank, and I anticipate I'll probably be reaching out to everyone sitting at that table to see if they're interested in participating in that dunk tank. I've already said I would. They are exploring the opportunity of doing a community art project, a mural somewhere that would have an impact. And it's really important to this outgoing seniors class. They're excited about that. They may begin some fundraising for that soon. Today had an opportunity to go by the World of Concrete trade show. Got to sit down with Connor, the CEO of Cementech, and they have about 25 people here from the company currently. So had a good opportunity how we can help them as a city, and they would like us to tell everybody that they've got jobs available for people that want to work, and providing free healthcare for all of their employees. And met with Brenda Easter from the chamber, and she's a wealth of knowledge, and just seeing how we can support our businesses and what we can do to make it easier. So right now, pretty much I'm just a sounding board and collecting a whole lot of ideas from people, and moving forward, we will hopefully have some good things happening here in town on top of what already is happening.
Thank you.
All I have.
Okay, thank you. All right. I did one other thing. I would mention that I was attended a Zoom meeting for Terry Pauling's Salem Connection project for businesses. If there's a business space or area they want to use, I thought that he's got a great concept there. I did attend that via Zoom, and that was a good thing. I think they sent out an invitation to folks. I think there's another one coming up there shortly. If somebody wants to participate, that's fine too.
February 10th, Steve, from 11:15 to 1:30 is the next one, and I plan on attending and seeing what we can do to start promoting that space. It is a great opportunity. Students can use it. Anyone can use it.
Okay, moving on to old business then. Third consideration of an ordinance amending the city code of the city of Indianola to amend the noise regulation section 48.06. Let's have a motion in a second, and we'll have to see the discussion.
Move to approve.
Got a motion to approve?
Second.
Second by Hewlin. Any discussion? Charlie, is there anything you need to add to this?
I don't think we have anything bad.
Okay, any other discussion? No further discussion. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Next item is third consideration of an ordinance amending the city code of the city of Indianola to amend peddlers, solicitors, and transient merchants, section 122. Motion and a second, please.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second made. Any further consideration or discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Parker.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
All right, item number 3, second consideration of the ordinance approving vacation of a 20-foot to 42-foot storm sewer easement at 1010 North Jefferson Way. Had a fairly long discussion last time on this issue. Motion and a second, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this? Jackie, please.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
All right, boards and commissions. Mayor, did you want to say something on this?
I did. So a couple of them, and again, this is all open for discussion. We're a team here, but there's a couple that are just going to stay the same. John, we had a conversation at the last meeting about you continuing on the Greater Des Moines Convention, and I'll run through these kind of real quick. And I think we're good so far. It seems like we're all in agreement with the ones I've talked to on this. So for the STHRPA, Steve, you have that. MPO is the mayor, so myself, John on the Greater Des Moines Convention, the landfill board, Christina, But John, I heard today you might have an interest in helping with that too. So,
I don't mind doing it. Their meeting sounds like most of them are virtual, so that makes it easier for me during the day, so.
yeah, okay. So if you're okay with that, I would welcome that. Mayor Pro Tem, we have Steve, Metro Advisory, Steve, Warren County Economic Development, Heather. And then Christina will be the backup for the WCEMA, EMA. And I failed to mention that in my last report. We had my first meeting, and we'll meet again in April for that. And then the YMCA Steering Committee, Ron and Gwen. So open to suggestions. And then we'll circle back on Bravo a little bit on that if you guys want to discuss those, if there's any changes you want to see.
I'm good with that.
I'm fine with that.
Everybody good with that?
I just have a question though. There's a landfill meeting tomorrow. And so that would be my
What time?
11.
Is there a link for that then that I'm assuming you have or somebody?
It's a phone call
It's a phone
conference,
call.
so
Okay.
Conference call.
Okay.
It's an.
Jackie, would you?
Well, we have it.
I say I have it
I'll forward
too.
it to you, John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah,
Christina,
I'll
yeah,
forward it to
yeah,
both of you.
yeah, great.
Perfect.
Really quick,
was 11.
Okay.
11. Mhm. Yep.
Charlie?
from a clarification point on, and staff's point, so on WCDC, that's listed as city manager as the primary and then Heather as the alternate. I just want to make sure Heather wasn't primary on that.
No, she alternate. And did they both go? Did Greg go to that with Ryan?
I think only when Ryan couldn't go was when he was there.
Mhm.
Does it hurt to have both? I mean,
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, that's up, I guess that's up to them, but voting wise,
Yeah,
it just,
you get one
you
vote.
only have one vote, so it just would be one person, probably the city manager, however you want to do it, but that's how it is.
and I'll leave that, Charlie, for you and Heather to discuss. I know your schedule's pretty busy doing a couple jobs. So, in speaking with Heather, and it was Gwen that brought it to my attention, she just has a great background that she can bring to that, and felt it was a really good spot for her.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So Bravo, I had a meeting with Bob Kling last week, and he would like to stay on the Bravo board in that capacity that he's at. And I explained to him that our policies has changed. And so currently right now, the way the policy is written is that it has to be a council person. So that is something I explained. I don't have a vote on the matter, but if somebody wants to have that discussion in regarding to change that policy, I'm certainly open to that.
I'd like to see Bob remain. I think he's far and about the most qualified. So if we need to change policy, I don't know if we need to look though, if it's a one-time change in this instance, or if
Well,
it's something we want to do long-term.
I actually think, having gone through that whole policy thing, I think that might be a Scrivener's error, to be honest with you, from a cut and paste possibly, because it wasn't before we had the
Real Bob
policy
didn't think it
handbook. I
was.
mean, it had always been, because Bob had been, before he was a council
Right.
member, he's been
Right.
on that board for a number of years.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
what we thought.
I was gonna go back through, and my day got away from me today, but I wanted to go back and look and see, because I really think that's not supposed to be in there, to be honest with you. So I don't know, but one way or the other, we gotta make the change. So I think we can,
I would like to see Bob stay on there too.
I would agree.
Yeah, Heather,
Yeah.
Ron,
That's fine.
Christina.
Yeah.
Staff, will you please work on making the change then, and we'll get Bob appointed to Bravo.
Yeah.
So we'll have staff make that policy change, and then next meeting, bring that back for Bob for that and vote on it.
Yes.
Because I'll follow up with Bob on that and let him know as well.
Doug, do we need a vote on this then?
No, you can
Okay,
just
we're good.
refresh the staff and
Okay.
come back.
We do need one to receive and file listings board information. So has everybody had a chance to look through those and we're okay with those? We have a motion to approve the listing boards and commission members then.
Motion to approve.
second.
Okay, Ron, made a motion and second by Parker. Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Motion carries. So we're on a resolution approving a request for approval of plat survey located at 1308 South G Street. You up on this, Charlie?
Motion second, and then we'll get
Yeah,
to
we
it.
did a motion, I'm sorry. Yep.
Move to approve as written.
Second.
Okay. Okay, discussion and Charlie?
Really quick, so some of the council members who were on council previous to January 1 will recall this, but we had a rezoning of this property a few months ago, and the intention of the rezoning was to get it out of the A1 zoning district to allow smaller lot sizes. What the applicant wishes to do here is actually split that house off, and if you can see it on the screen there, and I know it's in your packet, there is a single-family dwelling, a small single-family dwelling on the northwest corner of that property right along South G Street. They want to split that off on 1 acre and then keep the balance of the ground as its own parcel. What this will really do again is it creates a smaller lot for that existing single family dwelling, but then the balance would become a second buildable lot for them. We've talked through some stuff with the applicant and property owner on this as far as, development potential for that entire tract of ground. So they're aware of that and what the R1 zoning district allows, but if that does ever come or become something that they wish to do, it would come forward as another subdivision plat. So that would be something that council would review.
Any further comments? None seen. Jackie, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Need a motion for public hearing on the request to change zoning district boundaries from C2 highway commercial zoning district to R2 single family residential attached residential zoning district.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion to open a public hearing in a second. Jackie?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
We are in a public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing. Jackie again.
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
We are now in the first consideration of an ordinance amending the municipal code of City of Indianola for change of zoning district boundaries 404 South Jefferson Way from A to C2 highway commercial zoning district to R2 single family residential attached zoning district. Do I have
Move to approve.
move to approve? We got a second?
Second.
Second, discussion. Charlie, just want to run through this one more
Yeah,
time.
no, not a problem at all. So this particular rezoning request is just on a single family dwelling on South Jefferson Way. Just to kind of give some history on zoning in Indianola as I understand it. At some point, some time ago, the city council made a move to zone all the properties along our highway corridors as commercial. That included a lot of these single family dwellings on South Jefferson Way. What that does is, the houses that are on those parcels come what's called legal non-conforming uses. That allows those to stay in place, quote unquote, grandfathered in to a point to where if it was damaged, destroyed, tornado, fire, anything like that, it would not be allowed to be rebuilt as a single family dwelling. It would have to conform to the commercial zoning district. What happens with that is you'll see a lot of times when people are selling property, they're trying to get lending. New buyers, I should say, are trying to get lending. They'll do a review process on the zoning. And if a lender realizes that the house cannot be rebuilt, sometimes they have issues with that and will not provide lending. So it becomes an issue. So as we looked at this one as staff, the city recently updated our comprehensive plan and we kind of pulled back some of that highway commercial zoning to better match what we are doing in these areas, more single family dwelling. I think we realize that we have a balance of commercial ground along our highway corridors, a lot of commercial ground up in Summercrest Hills and Square and all of that stuff. And when we looked at the numbers, we realized we really didn't need that much commercial in this area down here. So we showed it in our comprehensive plan as a residential land use. Property owner is just asking the council now to change the zoning to match what the comprehensive plan says, which is exactly what state code says that you should do when looking at zoning requests. So I don't have anything else to add on that. I would answer any questions if council has them. I do want to note there is a request from the applicant on this to waive second and third consideration. If you've seen that request, the request really ties back to they have a buyer who wants to buy this piece of ground and they cannot close on it until we get through this process. If we take it through second and third consideration, we're looking at February, late February before this rezoning becomes official. So I just want to make sure council is aware of that as well.
We have a motion on first consideration, so I assume we'll take that care of first and then.
Yep, and then make a motion if council wishes to waive, yes.
Waive the rules.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like to speak up because I do this every time when we have this waiving of the when I first got on council 10 years ago, there was a lot of things that were done where they just waived it just for convenience, and that's not the right way. There's a reason why you have 3 readings, and you should always follow that. Now, the reason you have that opportunity to waive is situations like this. Did we get a letter or did anybody respond?
We had one public comment from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they didn't come in person, but it was from Rasco Construction. And I apologize, I know that wasn't included in the council packet, but it was included in the Planning Commission packet, essentially asking us to not spot zone this property. So council's aware, spot zoning is something that we do not do here, but as long as the underlying comprehensive plan calls for residential land use in there, rezoning it to residential is not spot zoning.
Anyway, so with that being said, I don't like it, but for certain situations, but like I said, when we first got here, it was more willy-nilly, so you didn't have to deal with it, just move on. Well, that's not the way the law is written, and so I know Doug would frown on that, so he gave me that smirk, so he knew where I was going with it. So I'm completely in favor of that, but like I said, I always bring that up just as a reminder why we do what we do, so.
And I'm with you. I would normally vote against second, third, waiving second, third readings, but this is something that's a little different. So. We have a motion and a second. For any further discussion on the issue? Jackie?
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewland.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to waive the rules and do the second and third reading.
We have a second.
Second.
Christina Beach, we'll give her a second on that. Any further discussion on that? All right, Jackie, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dalby.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewland.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Item there under the old business will be approval of payment application number 7 for the streetscape from Absolute Concrete amount of $47,336.01. We have a motion and a second, and we'll discuss.
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion and a second, or is there any discussion on this payment application?
Really quick if I can, and I had this one get put on the regular agenda just so we could update council on where we are financially with this project. On the screen up here above, you can see our total project estimate at this point is about just a little bit north of 9.9 million. To date, we have expended about $3.4 million total, which is just a little over a third of the project, knowing that we have 2 years left that we're right on cue on that. Construction costs to date have been about 2.5 million, and change orders to date have been 88,000. Those change orders are about 3.5% of what has been paid out, so well under our 5% threshold on that. Really, the only other things I have up there are just kind of highlighting what we have paid for to date. And just wanted to be able to provide this information because I think it flows well into your first study session item tonight as an update on the streetscape.
Thank you.
Charlie, I have a question for you. On those, and I don't know if it's good to ask it now or maybe in the study session, but on the change orders, do you kind of have a breakdown of what they are? I can see when the payments were on this, but do you have any idea off the top of your head, or I can wait till?
If you want to talk about in study session, I'll have it ready then, but I do have it.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other discussion? A motion and a second. Jackie, we'll call the roll, please.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewland.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, new business. Resolution approving certain amendments to City of Indianola policies pertaining to boards and commissions. Do I have a motion and a second? We'll get into discussion.
Motion to.
Okay, Heather Moved. Skinner seconded. All right, Charlie.
Actually, I have Jackie. handle
Jackie?
this one, yeah.
Council directed us at the last meeting to remove the administrative and policy, executive policy committee at the, out of the handbook, and so we've done that. So it just kind of directs the clerk on what to do with applications for boards and commissions.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, Jackie, please call the roll.
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Number two, consideration of appointment of Jane Wayland to the Board of Adjustment for term beginning immediately and ending July 1, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Jackie?
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Consideration of appointment of Jane Wayland to the Board of Adjustment for term beginning July 1, 2022 and ending July 1, 2027.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Maybe just make a comment as to why we're doing this, just so everybody remembers what's going on. Last year, we made a change in the past. Boards and commissions, most of them came off at the calendar year, January 1. While in a situation where you have, like you guys, new council members, people changing, we just felt that it probably would fit better to go with the fiscal year. And so that's why we changed those. So we still have a little bit of an overlap where we got a handful of those that we have to approve a 6-month and then pick it up. So that way then their terms would end. So that's what this is about. So,
Okay.
very good.
Yeah, that covers it well.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, Jackie?
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Item number 3, consideration of the appointment of Scott Duncan to Human Relations Commission for term beginning immediately and ending July 1, 2022.
Second.
Second. Is there a second here? Discussion. Hearing none. I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Richardson.
Aye.
Hewlin.
Nay.
Parker.
Nay.
Dalby.
Nay.
Schroeder.
Nay.
Beach.
Motion fails 2-4. Number 5, consideration of appointment of Deb White, to the IMU Board of Trustees for term beginning immediately and ending July 1, 2026. Do I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve in a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I called Deb. I just wanted to find out, she had served in the past, while she was getting back on and what her ambitions and desires were for her getting back on.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Steve, I as well as had a conversation with Deb. She was recommended to me by the outgoing person and had a conversation with the IMU board members to ask if they would support this position. I think we all know that we're in a critical time with growth and we need to just keep our board moving quickly, and someone that can jump right in. And I was excited that Deb would want to come back and she would be interested to that. So I guess we'll hope we can just keep moving forward with that. And I think she just brings a great addition to that board, complements those personalities well too there.
Thank you. I've had a chance to work with Deb professionally when she was at Simpson College. Company I worked for at the time had done a lot of work for Simpson. We had done some work there and had some questions about payment issues and those kinds of things. I thought Deb handled those things very well. One of the other things that I personally appreciated was when I was meeting with all of the department heads and some of the staff from IMU prior to the election. I had more than a couple tell me that they had appreciated both Deb's leadership and Jim Kleiman's leadership during the time but we put in fiber, that whole process as well, and so. But the things that we've had and some of the council issues and things with IMU, I think we need somebody that's been there, done that, and move forward, so. Any further discussion?
I would say the opposite. I think because of the problems we've had, we need someone with some different experience, maybe business development, a vision for the future. I also know Deb, worked with her, respect her. Thank you for your service, Deb. But I do think Deb also was an active participant in bringing a lawsuit against the city and kind of indicating that she was not willing to work with our council. So I find that to be a bit of a concern, and I just think that we need to move forward. We need to be working together, and I think the best way to do that is to put the past behind us. So like I said, I'd like to see somebody with a different skill set.
Any further comment?
Yeah, when Deb was on there and it was important that they didn't have a general manager, and she stepped in, and I know she put in a ton of hours and worked hard at that. I guess my biggest concern is that kind of what Gwen had mentioned, but then too, I'm just concerned, what I'm looking for is someone that's willing to look at the big picture and look forward. We've got our letter here a while back in our last bills, I believe, that stated that, the $1 million a mile to replace water mains. And I know I've been beating the drum for a number of years with members of that board after Chief Chia explained to me how detrimental the quality of our water mains and the size of our water mains are in this community when they go to put out a fire, and the problems. And, we get this letter stating that, we didn't raise rates for 10 years. Well, my concern is why weren't we thinking about this 10 years ago, that we have issues with this, and start putting plans in place? I will tell you, the last 5 years, council, we went through and studied our roads and did a concrete paving index for every street in town, so we know where everything stands. We did the same thing with stormwater. We've been looking at buildings because years prior, that those maintenance and those issues hadn't been done by council. And so we've been proactive to stay on top of that. And I don't feel that that's gone on with IMU over the last number of years. And I guess I'm looking for new blood, someone that, like Gwen had mentioned, more business development. I think long-term thinking, and I just, I know there's people out there, Deb's had her time and appreciate the time that she was there. But I guess I'm looking for something a little different.
Any further comments?
I'll add, I share many of the concerns that were mentioned, but also recognize the need to move forward.
I would like to say I did speak with someone who was previously on the hiring board with Deb, and they had nothing but amazing things to say about her. And to me, she's got experience on that board already. She's perfectly capable of coming on and filling the other Deb's shoes pretty much immediately. There's no learning curve.
Any further comments?
Steve, I'll add one more. I know, and I'm not sure, Heather, Gwen, and John, if you had an opportunity to talk to Deb, and I know that Deb has done her due diligence, and she has spoken to the department heads at IMU and has identified certain things. And part of the reason why we would like to get this board complete is that previous mayor had some statements and some concerns that she wanted addressed. And I have spoken to 3 of those board members, and I have told them that we would ask that they would look into every single one of those points so that we can address those. It's not that we're going to, just move forward and not talk about it, but I think we need to get a complete board there first, and then to appoint a chair. And then we can ask that chair to do that and respond And again, I think Deb has done a lot of due diligence and speaking with Mike, Kurt, and Lou. So I just ask you to take that into consideration, that she has done that. And if you haven't had an opportunity to speak with her, I would encourage you to, because I think that she is very smart. And like Christina said, she can just jump right in and get right to work, because that's what we need. And I know IMU had at 5:30 today, they had a strategic planning session. So, you know, I think they are looking forward and they are trying to get that set up, but it's going to need a complete board and all of those different mindsets to come together to really give that strategic plan success. So I just ask that you take that into consideration of how important it is to those board members to have a complete board.
Any further discussion?
Oh, Mayor, I appreciate that. And I don't disagree with you, but again, we've gone along. I mean, I've gone 10 years with this, and a lot of history to where there hasn't been any of that future planning. And the only reason they've started doing that is because we started pushing that and started holding them accountable. I guess, you know, this, to me, this goes back to the fact that I, as an elected official by the citizens of Indianola, have to oversee what a appointed board does. And I don't feel that we get, you know, somebody's got to hold them accountable, and they have the attitude that they're an autonomous board, which, okay, by law they are, but somebody's got to hold them accountable and be responsible to the ratepayers and the citizens of Indianola. And I guess that's my concern, is we've gone down this road. I don't feel that it was, you know, last time she was there, that it was that way. And I just, my concern is that we're going to keep going, recycling back around again. So I don't disagree. I'm sure completely capable of being there, knows the ins and outs and all the verbiage and all that stuff. But I guess it'd just be nice to start seeing some new faces. So.
Yeah, with the capability of innovation.
No.
Well, in my conversation with Deb today, that the fact that she is willing to take on those things, realizes there's been some shortcomings in the past, but willing to take those things on. I'm still going to support the motion.
I understand. I'll be paying attention. I mean, you know, I'm just going to be watching. I'll be bringing it up to this board. I mean, somebody has to hold them accountable. So,
well,
and I feel like if we don't, it just goes away, Steve. I've been, again, like I said, I've been sitting here 10 years and dealing with this. So
I understand that, and we'll have a little bit of disagreement here, Tom, but I think the board should work pretty autonomously from the city. I don't think we should micromanage what they do.
I didn't say that.
I'm not arguing with you, John. I'm just saying, I don't think we should micromanage what they do. I think that board should have some decision-making processes that we don't interfere with. Having said that, I do know that the last number of years it was totally immersed in getting fiber into the city, making sure that works properly. Sometimes staff knows this as well. When you immerse yourself in one particular project, and all of our staffs, IMU, the city, everybody, we work on small staffs. We work with small groups of people. We don't have a lot of employees. That's not the way we operate. We haven't so far anyway. We do need more. And so they're doing what they can, but they were all hands on deck in a lot of ways on that IMU fiber. I think it's going to pay off for the city in the long run. Has there been some shortcomings? Absolutely. But I am fully confident that she will help with that board and move that board forward with those issues. So my opinion, I know we all differ. So any other comments, council?
One last thing, Steve. I think one of the things in meeting and speaking with the board members of IMU is that we really have not had in writing what our expectations are and what their requirements are. There's conversations previously. I'm not a privy of those. So, you know, that they wanted a strategic plan. But from our side, on the city side, we don't have a policy or procedure or, you know, all of those expectations spelled out for them. So this is something I hope we can work a little bit in our retreat on, is that what are our expectations of certain boards For instance, we have a recent new board that we brought on, and what's our expectations and what are their responsibilities? And I'd like us to look at that from IMU standpoint too, outside of, just what our ordinance says. If we expect a 5-year strategic plan, then I think it's only fair that we develop that and we make that very clear to them, and that we can't continue to say, well, they haven't done it previously. Well, it certainly was not a requirement that they had to do it. It's a busy board. It's a hard board, and it's pretty technical. So I think we have to clarify more and be very direct and open about what our expectations are and have those in writing to them.
John, do you want to comment on that?
I got to push back. I'm really sorry about this, Mayor, but that's a professional board, and for them to go all these years and not doing any strategic planning and thinking ahead. And Steve, I appreciate the fiber was a big bite, but there are 2 other entities in that organization that need to be watched all the time as well and updated and move along. And we, over the last so many years, we've updated our comprehensive plan while we were looking at our streets, while we were looking at our stormwater. I mean, we were doing all these things at the same time because they needed to be done. I guess I'm just a little bit taken aback that we're making excuses for an organization that I pay my money to. I'll take my council hat off and my 308 North 14th Street John Parker residence hat on. That I'm maybe I should have been going to the meetings more often and complaining, but we spent a number of years sitting up here, and people come in and complain about this and that, and yet their electric rates were going up nonstop with no plan in place to what they can do about it, other than throw up the hands and say, well, we're tied to this mean contract. There's never been any long-term visioning and focus, since I've been on there or since I've been on this council. And so for us to say
Don,
that,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but they did previously have one. They had in 2015 a strategic plan.
Councilmember Parker.
for you to say that we need to have written expectations for them, I mean, they just do their job, and they haven't been, and I'm sorry that I just disagree with you, and we'll have to move this to another conversation another time, but because I'd like to move along, but
Mayor, what do you have to say?
They previously did have a strategic 5-year plan, from my understanding, in 2015. There was a 5-year plan that was written. But, as we know, board, it changes. So we get new board members on, and I'm just saying we have to have those expectations really clear. So that's all I'm suggesting there, is that we should put it in writing, because as these people turn over, or we have new people added to a board, I think they need to understand what our expectations are. And yes, I realize that, it's those are things that seem pretty easy for us to think that they would have, but it's a lot of time, and they are very busy individuals too. I understand that. So I just would like to see us make it clear what our expectations are, and maybe look at what that previous strategic plan was. And I understand that COVID played, it's not an excuse for them. I'm very a procedural person, and want to make sure that expectations are really clear of what we expect.
I think we have a clear list from our December meeting, so we can put that together very quickly.
Well, I think the other thing, and just a point to be made, 2 points actually. Number one, having visited Mike Metcalf out at the electric facility out on Iowa Street, they're doing some wonderful things out there with a number of different things. And number one thing that they are currently looking at, as we've been kind of apprised a little bit, is moving forward with solar energy, and that fact that we might be able to actually look at some positive rates there, that with some of the possibilities that they have of creating a solar field here in the community, basically at a very minimal cost, I think shows that they are moving ahead with some of the other things and trying to find ways to deal with some of the other issues out there in electric. I would also say something about the water facility. Again, I would encourage any council member to go visit either one of those facilities, set up time, go talk with those folks. That water facility, I believe, was built in 1993, somewhere in that neighborhood, had a 40-year lifespan, which means we're working on towards the end of that. However, if you go out and take a look at the water plant, we still are able to maintain that plant. They put a lot of money into maintenance of that facility. That plant is expected to last well beyond its 40-year lifespan. We are well under usage. In other words, it can still meet capacity for this community for a number of years. These are all things you learn when you go visit these folks. So with that said, I will stop my discussion. If anybody else has anything to say, we'll move on. Vote.
I don't think the implication is that it's inadequate. I think there are a lot of good things happening. There are some things that need to be done differently. And it seems to me, as John and I have mentioned, that new blood would be helpful with that.
And I will say one thing too, and I think I've talked to a number of you as well as appointments come up in the future as well. Gentleman that ran against me, I think has a very good background, a lot of different things. I'd like to see him apply. There's other folks out there too. I know you've got an engineer you talked about. So I think there's things we can look at there. With that said, Jackie, you're going to call the roll.
Councilmember Parker,
Nay.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Nay.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Motion carries 4-2. All right, we are on to the appointment and consideration of the reappointment of Sarah Ritchie to Planning and Zoning Commission for a term beginning February 1, ending July 1, 2022. Do I have a motion and a second?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. I had a chance to talk to Sarah today. I've never met her, talked with her probably for 20-25 minutes today. Great conversation. A lot of great things that I've heard people say. So
She's great.
great addition, absolutely.
I did want to mention that Sarah is a family member, so I will abstain my vote.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Dalby.
Abstain.
All righty, we are then back on Sarah, appointing her to continue that appointment from July 1, 2022 to July 1, 2027. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
And a second? No discussion, I'm assuming, so we'll move on to a vote. Jackie?
Councilmember Dalby,
Abstain.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
First consideration of an ordinance amending the city code of the city of Indianola regarding requirements for sanitary disposal.
Move to approve.
Got a
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
Yeah, I would like to talk about this a little bit. I'm not in favor of removing a set time frame here. I believe what it says is to remove requirement of days and then to say staff will be able to use its discretion on a case-by-case basis. I think it just leaves it up. I don't like it not being so black and white, you know. I think, you know, I don't like it to be a judgment call. And I'm okay with it not being 30 days, you know, if you want to roll back to 20 or 15, but I like a definite, this is when it has to be removed by.
I'd agree with that. Shorten it way up, way up.
And really, the only thing I'll add is we deal with nuisance cases all the time. And 99% of them are judgment calls based off what we see in the field. You know, if we see grass that is a foot long, typically can give them more time. If we see grass that is 3 feet long, we might kind of lower that. So it's always on a case-by-case basis where stuff has. So the request here from staff was just to kind of match what we do with other nuisance cases, which are all evaluated on a case-by-case basis, and we make a decision from there. Now, if we add a time frame to it, I do not object to that. But just based off the types of complaints that we have gotten in the past, and going off this one particular case that we had, sometimes I can tell you it's really important to get that taken care of sooner than later.
That's what I was gonna say. Is this to shorten the time frame or to give more flexibility to lengthen it? Because lengthening it, I would not, I would not support.
Yeah, and I'd have to get back into our nuisance code exactly. I don't know if there's a maximum amount of time that we can get on any of those. I don't think there is, but I mean, we've never looked at a maximum amount of time. There are, you know, dangerous building, for example, we have very specific parameters and the dates that we can give if the building is deemed dangerous, but nuisance stuff. Again, most of the stuff we're dealing with, it might be this, might be that. You might have somebody call in and say, hey, I'll get to this, but I need a couple more weeks to take care of it. And sometimes that does get stretched out. But again, I'll tell you, it's just on a case by case basis.
Okay, so what this says right now is currently that we can't do anything unless it's been there for 30 days.
Yes.
Then once it's been there 30 days, how long does it take then?
Yeah.
There's a time frame, right? There's a process. So how much longer? would
We
it go?
can, no, so, and I'll look to Doug on this a little bit, but let me explain. The way I see it is we could send notice to say you have until whatever that 30-day time frame is to remove it. If it's not removed in that 30-day time frame, then the city can take course to abate it.
And you can give notice anytime
Yeah.
Okay.
within the 30 days and basically give them a notice that you will abate by the end of the 30 days.
And since these are rental since the public.
This would apply to not just rental.
Right, I know, but the issue you had brought this up was a rental property. So then when it's abated, the bill goes to the property, correct?
Yep.
So then the property, the property owner, the landlord would be the one paying that bill.
Yep.
So basically, it's then no incentive to the, anyway. I don't care. I mean, I think 5 days are fine. I mean, I don't care,
I
you
was
know.
gonna say, is it realistic to make it shorter? I mean, legally, Doug, because that's what I would like to see. I agree that it would be great to have a timeline, but much shorter. But if that's not fair and realistic,
The
you can't
problem,
get the mail out in time and.
yeah, the problem is that you've got to give adequate notice that there is a process to undergo. Like Charlie said, if you've got a dangerous building, well, there's certain emergency police powers we have,
Mhm.
so we can take action immediately. You know, sometimes I suppose this get bad enough, you could actually do that, but you know, it is difficult to get the wheels moving that fast and give them adequate notice. So I'd say you're probably gonna need to give 15 days or so just to get.
It
So if you put a
frustrates me
date
when-
in it,
Yeah.
you would say that 15 would be a sufficient date.
Get your notices out and get everything done.
I mean, it just frustrates me that, like you need a couple extra weeks, you knew it was there. You knew it was a problem, you knew it's against code. So let's enforce it.
A lot of times you get stretched out.
Yeah.
You get 30 days, you
Yeah.
get a notice, and it's another 30 days,
Yeah.
and might be another 30 days. and you get that too, so.
We're trying to elevate it.
So what's the consensus here? Is it 15 days?
Ron, did your question get, I mean?
Yeah, my question got answered. I mean, when it mentioned 15 days, I would be fine with 15 days. I mean, so is that 15 days from the time that the notification is sent?
No, just 15
15
days
days.
since it started showing up.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would be from the time we first observed it, we would put that 15-day clock on it, figure out what that is, send out notice.
So Charlie, what do you think about that? You wanted it removed.
Yeah, I mean, I do, because again, it gives us more flexibility. I can tell you right now, really, with any code case that we've ever done, we're always conscious of the fact that we know, first of all, with snail mail especially, sometimes it takes a little bit to get to people, all of that stuff. So we've always worked with kind of just having that flexibility. Completely respect if council wants to put a time frame on there, that's completely fine, but sometimes flexibility works a little bit better for us. If it's one bag of trash, obviously, we're probably not going to do much about it. One bag of trash is just one bag of trash. In this particular case that we were dealing with, it was a 4-unit building, I believe, and they had months of trash piling up on the side of the house. So it was something that we felt like we needed to take care of just a little bit sooner than.
I kind of think we have to have a limit in it, because when I get complaints and pass them on and then check it on it can go on for weeks, and then the people are coming back to me, hey, I thought you were taking care of that, type of thing. So I kind of think we need to.
Charlie, is a 30-day kind of a typical standard across the board?
Is it? Yeah.
I'm thinking if you get a notice for anything, it's typically they'll give you at least 30 days. And I
mean,
know that seems like a long time when things sometimes are not the way you want them, but yet 30 days actually goes pretty darn quick, especially if you're looking at snail mail.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it's typical. And again, it really depends on the situation. There's nuisances vary all the time. The grass mowing stuff, I mean, we typically are less than that. I mean, we'll typically ask for that to get taken care of in 3 or 5 days, just because in our opinion, you get the letter, fire up the lawnmower, get it taken care of. And, so the neighbor can be happy about that. But it's so hard to say. There's so many different types of nuisances that we deal with. I mean, getting a tree knocked down, for example, we're not going to send a notice and say, hey, you have a dead ash tree in your yard. You need to have it knocked down. You need to have it done by Friday, because that's not realistic.
Right, that's not
So,
realistic.
yeah.
Right.
So again, it's
Things like that, you take time, picking up trash
Yep.
does not take time.
Yep. So again, it's really done on a case by case basis for us.
And to Charlie's point too, is with trash, you either kind of make a decision whether you give them days, because then you need to have an appropriate period to notify them, or what this provision is doing is saying that that the city can make the decision and deem something a nuisance, because, and there's there's a rationality to that, because it is trash as opposed to even weeds. All right, so you give them 5 days to cut their grass. Well, it's gonna get a little bit longer, but not that much. Trash can accumulate more, and it can attract vermin, it can blow around. So, there's a good rationale why you let the city make that decision. You may
So
not,
then-
but if you're not comfortable with that, that's fine.
Well, so then Charlie, are you saying then you would subjectively add a timeline in there, or you're just sending out the letter without any?
No. We always have timelines. We have to by code. So
Okay.
by code,
I
we
understand.
have to provide a timeline in our written notice of when they have to have it paid by. We can't just send us a letter that says, you have to take care of this, and then 3 days later, we just come out and take care of it.
Okay, so you're
That's-
saying the letter would.
Yeah,
address the date.
yes,
I
and
misunderstood.
okay, so sorry for, and if that was the question, I do apologize, that's not where I was going with it, but yes, we always provide a deadline and a date that, Friday, March 22nd, whatever that may be.
Okay,
It's
so
always that
shorter,
hard date,
longer,
yep,
based on the issue.
yes.
Well,
And
I
by
can get-
removing a date from this, we're not opening ourselves
No,
up
we-
then to people to be able to say, well, you don't have a deadline.
Because they're
in
putting
your
the
ordinance."
date in.
Give them more
Whether-
flexibility.
Yes.
And yeah, they always go through a process. It's
Okay.
just, it may be such that they have to literally give somebody a notice to say you've got 48 hours to do this because it's an health hazard.
So, and I'm pulling up our nuisance code, chapter 50, section 50.06 is abatement by nuisance by written notice. So it says that we have to provide written notice. Section D of that says a reasonable time within which to complete the abatement. That's what we always go off of is, again, we let our code enforcement officer, what is that reasonable time based off what he's seeing in the field? So,
Maybe we
That
can
makes sense.
Yeah,
tighten
that
that
makes
up a
more
little
sense.
bit.
Yeah, that definitely makes more sense.
Yeah, I didn't
So are
understand.
you okay?
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
fine with
okay.
that. For some reason, I thought we were no longer giving them a date of
No.
when they needed to have that trash.
yep, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yep, nope, it's
It
just, it just gives us the flexibility to, 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, whatever it may be.
Because it could be something really bad that's been there 10 days, and you
Right.
guys might say, we gotta do this now and get the notice sent out. So
Yeah, and I'd like to see us take some of those up. you know,
Yeah,
when
and that's something we can
it's
look at in the future too, yeah.
Okay, you're okay then,
Question
right?
answer, right?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Jackie, you may call the roll.
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Motion carries. Okay, resolution to approve temporary road closures for 2022 right-of-way construction program. Who gets to speak about this? Do we have a motion to?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. AP?
So this is AP, Public Works Director. What this is basically, this resolution will give the Public Works Director the authority to temporarily close roads due to construction. Primarily, by the state code, you're supposed to have a resolution to temporarily close roads. This will give an annual for the year of 2022. It gives me authority to temporarily close roads.
Remind me, is this the second or third year we've done this? Second
This
year.
is the second year.
Second year, and everything worked great for it? Perfect, good.
AP, does that also include then if there's an emergency that you're able to close roads in as well?
That is correct.
Thank you. Any further questions? We have a motion and a second. Clerk call the roll, please.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Charlie?
And now that AP sat down, I'm gonna ask him to get back up and yield some of my time to him, but I know the mayor had mentioned, thanks to the street department for the snow event that we had here, and I just asked AP to share some stats with what our crews were doing this week, and as we tackled this, what was it, 9 to 10 to 12 inches in some areas of snow that we found, so.
So this snow had its own challenges, basically not just with the type of snow we received. The first 3 hours was basically rainfall, made it more difficult because the road was more slick, and We also had challenges with personnel. We had two of our street staff members in COVID take off due to COVID. So we had to ask help from water pollution control, parks, and fire department. They came and helped. So we had some experienced staff. At the same time, we had some inexperienced staff too. So you may have seen that in the roads. We tried to work in shifts. Overall, we had 9 employees constantly work from the day it snowed, from Friday night all the way till today. So they worked on shifts, 9-hour shifts, 15-hour shifts, go back home. We were circulating, rotating our shifts and coming back. Overall, I think we have cleared all the snow. I know from tomorrow it's going to be cold. So we have cleaned the slashes on the road. Overall, we have used about 200 hours of labor, used about 50 tons of salt sand mix, and roughly removed roughly about 130 truckloads of snow from the downtown area. And this is only for the streets, only on the public street. This does not include alleys that we have from water pollution control, does not include parks and trails that Parks Department does. So these stats that I gave you was only for the streets division.
Well, I think they did a great job, and
Yeah,
please,
you
that's
did.
our thanks.
That first 3 inches of snow was wet, heavy, and that's what caused you guys a lot of problems. Did a great job. So, although the chief back there, he's wanting to know why he can't be part of your crew too, so.
Can't see over the deck.
Anything else? Charlie, we got anything else to do? I'm good. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion is carried. Adjourned. We'll meet again in about 5 minutes.
Yes. I knew it was coming, right, too. You know, it's
Call the study committee meeting together to order here. Charlie, you want to lead us off here?
Yeah, first of all, we're going to do an update on the streetscape project, just kind of where we were with phase one, where we're going next year. And I'll introduce Chad Kalsdorf, who is the project engineer for this project from Bolton and Mink.
Okay. Chad?
Good evening. It's good to be back in your midst again. For those of you who I know and for new faces as well, nice to me engaging with you. Yeah, so what Charlie's asked for is just a quick project update and then answer some questions that might be out there. I know there's a lot of questions, and we're here just to resolve where we're at, where we're going, and kind of give you a general update. I also have with me Reese Hansen. Hello. He was our construction observer. So if there's something very specific on a specific date and time, he'll have the answer. So if you have one time, he was been down here the entire summer, so you can grill him if you'd like. But just really briefly, it's all important to see kind of how much work has gone on to where we're at this point. So as you well know, the downtown square and area, the initial, the kickoff of this, and Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, was an IEDA study or to improve business. That's kind of kicked it off. Then it went into a master planning, how to improve, take those suggestions, come into it. The box on the outside is the study area that Bolton Mink was contracted the city that we did as part of, and we used stakeholder group to kind of discuss the needs of the businesses and those people. We went through that as part of that, and then that fed into our design. As part of our design, we, in conjunction with the wastewater treatment plant, we got SRF funding to do stormwater improvements. So there's about $1.7 million of SRF funding. We're using the interest for the wastewater loan that we are applying into the project that are paying for a portion of the stormwater improvements. And so that's why this project has a lot of green infrastructure things, the permeable pavers, rain gardens, that kind of things, because those are being paid for by the state through that. So, so that's kind of the background to where we're at today. Again, we did the project in March, started construction in June, and completed the first phase substantially to about a 90% level here in December. So to kind of give you a summary of that. So when we say substantially complete, that doesn't mean it's accepted and the contractor can move off. We have a punch list of outstanding items talked about briefly earlier. There's some joint sealing and things that they still need to do. There's some touch-up work. They need to install the plants. It got too cold and we couldn't get those in at the time. But all your underground infrastructure, water main, storm sewer, pavements, everything to make it functional at this point has been completed and has been preliminarily accepted. The workmanship out there, if you walked around, is very, very good. That's some of the best concrete work and finishing that I've seen in the state of Iowa. Absolute concrete, and their team have done a great job on the work. We, for instance, on a lot of projects, we usually estimate a 10% tear out and redo on a lot of the concrete work. We have maybe 5 or 10 yards, basically less than a truckload of work that had to be pulled out and redone. Just the level of finish, the level of it has been fantastic. Like I said, landscaping, site furnishings, some minor touch-up work remains still in the area, and that'll happen as weather. Some of the things are delayed. Again, landscaping, installing trees and frozen ground is not great. I can't get them from the nursery. Site furnishings were kind of delayed due to fabrication and delivery issues, but those are in process. We have those. Those are coming in. We will store those until we can install them properly here coming February, March, as we start moving back in. And then the other touch-up work, the grouting, the sealing of some of those things, it just was better to wait with the cold weather. We have temporary fixes on all those things, so there's nothing in the way. But the finished product will happen here in the spring as we go forward. The other thing that sometimes we forget, because it seems like it was accomplished a long time ago, we added on Division 2, moving the mailboxes into the center median, building that median. That work was all complete in middle of July. So the Division 2 work as part of the contract is totally complete, been accepted, and it works really good functionally. I don't know if you've had any complaints. It flows pretty well.
Yeah, the only thing I know we've had a few complaints on, and AP Screw, I believe, is going to take care of this. If not, Iowa, is it Iowa Plan Signing? That's going to take, yeah. We don't have the double yellow lines that kind of depict the 2 lanes on the other side of the mailbox. You know, we've received a few complaints about that, but that does, there is a plan to address that in this frame.
I've also had a question about why the handicap parking was put across the street and then next to the post office on that.
Yeah, and I'll let AP take care of that because that yeah. Do you want that answer now or do you want to wait till the end? Okay. Okay. Yep.
So here's just kind of a brief kind of visual overview, talk you through where we started again and kind of talk through the process to give you some understanding of some of the challenges we faced and kind of the full-on process of what we have to go through to get these things accomplished. So again, the first thing we step is breaking up the pavement and removal, getting it down to grade. This is kind of a shot when we had that going before we started digging. We started in where we started in the phase 1 because that is one of the controlling sections of the storm sewer, future storm sewer. This was a very large pipe, 36-inch pipe as it connects to the existing storm sewer. And this leg was important because it's going to drain the entire downtown in and through out. So this is where we start. You normally when you're doing sewer, you want to start at the downhill side because that way it makes the rest of your life easier as you come up out of the ground. So large pipe, deep. These were installed about 12 foot deep. Takes a lot of work. I don't know if you know this about your downtown. It's very narrow, and so deep holes have lots of dirt. And so one of the challenges of this project was finding space to put things. Normally if it's a farm field, you drive by, you see contractors throw things all over the place, stockpile right next to it. Our contractor had to work out staging things in and out with rock and the pipe. And then you'll see a lot of pictures with large piles of dirt next to their soil next to the pipe. It's because that's where the only place they can put it before they can move it out. So this is one of the challenges we had as we were going through the downtown. As part of this too, so this is the connection in B at Salem and B Street into the new manholes that connected in. We also upgraded the water main through this section. We removed some existing water main. I believe we were saying this was at least 100 years old. So bright new shiny plastic pipe that flows way better than it did 100 years ago. Water pressure in the places have improved. We replaced some water mains. We found one lead lined service that was replaced. Luckily it was all in the street, so we didn't have to do plumbing through the house, but that was removed as part of this project. So we've upgraded that as well. So, and as we started digging through this, we found a lot of it was kind of digging through history. As you can imagine, as old as the square is, as old as town is, there's a lot of history underground that gets buried because, well, it's garbage one day, the next day it's history. It's kind of one of the fun parts of this. So as you can kind of see some more as we dug the storm sewer part, normally as an order of construction too, you always do the deepest pipe first, and then as you go up in depth, you do the next things. Water main usually runs about 6 foot deep. Storm sewer at the deep ends are always probably in a 10 to, depending, again, each design is different, between 10 to 8 to 7 feet deep. So water, and then you also do it by size as well. That's also the other priority because big pipe needs lots of space. And lots of contractors are not very careful with those big shovels that they work with. Or it's tough to be careful. It's probably a better analogy. You can see we have new manholes. Again, these are all very good. You cannot see that person very well, but he is a rather large dude, about my size. You can see the hole that we're working is it's a pretty big deep hole. Again, once all the underground, all the pipe is in, we put the dirt back, the soil back into the trenches, compact it, and then we get it cut to grade. So that way we know we have a tight and compliant surface. This is where you have problems if you don't do this step, roll it, make it tight. You'll have voids in it. There'll be gaps, just air that's not backfilled properly. So we did a lot of testing to make sure that the soil was in an optimal situation. We put back and back so you will not have future settlement issues. If you rush this step, it becomes problems for years and years and years. So once we compacted it past testing, we started to do the excavations for the basins or the soil we call them pits, but the excavations for the extra rock for storage as part of the SRF removal pavers. You can see there's rock underneath there, and then we have a bunch deeper, and this is filled with larger rock. So underneath the pavers, you have approximately 24 inches or 2 feet of storage, big volume rocks where water will store as it trickles through and mimics the natural action of rainfall. We do have additional pipes you can see here that'll pick up anything that doesn't really, if it stalls out or it doesn't infiltrate into the soil, it'll be picked up by the pipe and kind of slowly make its way out through the storm sewer. The advantages of this is that you really probably will never see a puddle in the square ever again, unless somebody drives a truck through it. It picks up so much water, the volume. It's a pretty amazing thing to see when you go from a traditional kind of, there's a lot of flooding, there's a lot of other issues to these kind of situations where it just is always dry. You should also see that those paver areas will be almost free themselves of snow, just because there's air circulation, they're warmer, and so the snow will melt off them much faster than a really normal paver. So we've been trying that with the weather here too. So some of it works. They'll still be treated. They'll still be scraped, but they'll come cleaner faster. After we had the rock and all the other ground done, setting up for paving. One of the challenges of this project that we had was paving this without a machine. So we used a screed to pull it across to make sure that we had the crown section properly. Normally, we prefer to have the big laydown machines, but it just wasn't feasible with this, and they were able to knock this out in about a morning to be able to pull it all through and run that totally completed. So the hard service, these are your through lanes that we got done. Again, and this is kind of at the intersection of Salem and Buxton, looking that way. That is kind of where we were, and it kind of sat that way. It probably felt like for a while, but there was a lot of backfill. Then we came in and poured all the curbs on this other side and set this up with more rock to kind of clean it up. So again, here you can't really see too well, but these are the paver beds. Once the curbs were in, we set the paver beds. It came in and placed these in. If you were out there or walking by there, they had a pretty cool machine that picks up a pallet at a time and would drop them in. So it went extremely quick. And then that's just a person sweeping in aggregate to make sure that the pavers lock in place together. And it's more of a chip rock than it is a sand. You want to keep that open so the water goes through the pores down to the bottom. So that's kind of one of the things that one of the other challenges that we maintain is once we were going through these processes is keeping the surface clean as much as we can. So that, again, construction sites are notoriously dirty. So it's been a challenge. We will have, before the final acceptance of the project, the contractor will go vacuum out the entire, all the pavers and do a fresh layer of chip rock in there to make sure it stays tight. That's part of their contract, and they're aware of that. So that's a standard practice that we do on these kind of projects. So then we got, if you think that was a hurdle, sidewalks was really truly the next hurdle. And this is one of the challenges and part of our lessons learned that I'll touch on quickly. So in a downtown with very old buildings, facades, a lot of fun stuff underground, it's a difficult thing to remove and replace a sidewalk. So the process that we had is we came through, removed the sidewalk, we had to cut and break at the building line. Some places they did stick, so we had to be very gentle and careful instead of just running through with a jackhammer. We cut it and then fight it out, as you can see, with the lift to move it off to be thrown away. To be as gentle as we can to not impact businesses' operations. Businesses, for the most part, stayed open. We got the different access, but our goal was not to disturb their operations or to minimize the disruption. So again, trying to have them access their businesses through an alternate entrance while we did this as we close this down to replace it. The next step again was setting up the rock and the forms against the building. Again, normally we just dump that in a straight line, grade that out with a heavy machine, and then hit it with a vibrator to make sure it's compacted in. Again, another challenge in a business district. And then we get in with the pouring and kind of finishing up against the building. So Pouring a sidewalk in most situations is very easy. This is a little more difficult. That's a challenging. Did we do it? Yeah, it's part of the job, and it's not that it was excessively hard, but it was one of those things that it took us, it took the contractor a while to get into a good rhythm on how to do it, to really figure it out, what worked well and efficiently with them and their crews. So this was a challenging doing the sidewalks. Took a lot more, and the contractor admitted it took them longer to complete than what they anticipated, just with the level of care that they had to perform to, and to how we ordered the operations, and I'll talk about that here in another slide. Then after the sidewalks, so sidewalks in, worked as hard as we could, and then we started working in on excavating for the rain gardens, doing the finish work for these are the paver basins for the inlay pavers and sidewalks. There's a lot of additional concrete pours. Each one of these kind of concrete strips were poured separately. So it became a process of a lot of many pours to get this all done. This is kind of the pre-finished format here. These are tree wells that will be filled with trees here in the spring. We did backfill all those with soil, special amended soil that gives it plenty of rock, so strong, but has a lot of space for the roots to grow and keep the roots inside of those boxes. And these are inlay pavers. This is before the sidewalk pavers were put into this. You can also see the concrete benches that we have spec'd along there. These are just the concrete base without the finished planking and the other things that will be going on here in the spring. So that's kind of a pictorial process of what we went through. One thing I think we wanted to talk about as part of this, I know there's been some concerns that Charlie brought to us we want to address. One of the big challenges about reconstruction versus new construction is we have to make things fit. And with the sidewalk, so this is a cross section of the roadway on Salem. Over here on this side is the elevation. You can see the dash line is the existing ground that we had to work with. And then the road, you can see the road section that we put in. One side is West Hill Brewing, the other side is Exit Realty, the building. And so we put in we have about a foot of difference between those two sides. Now, how do you fix that problem? The best solution, and of course, most expensive solution, is to buy the buildings, knock them down, grade it out so you don't have to worry about it. Again, very expensive, time consuming. Not many people like to do that. Then you have to go to your next, then you start going down the list of what you can do. Well, we leave this door where it's at, leave that door where it's at. Do we impose upon does the city take the cost or put it on to the building owner we'll put the road in where it works better. So we do not have kind of these steep chamfers, but someone has to put an ADA accessible ramp into those buildings, whether it's the business owner or the city does it. It's extremely expensive, big delay. You put that outside where you don't have as much walkable space. So now you have to share your ADA access with a ramp. On this section of the street, it's not that wide. We only have about 8 foot, I believe, to deal with between the building face and the back and curb. So you need 5 foot and 5 foot. So you're just out of space. It goes away really quick. It's expensive. You push that into the building, then you have to involve an architect. If the building goes, and it becomes a challenge. No, that was discussed early on in the project. It was a non-starter, just due to cost and expense and some of the other things. So the next best solution that we had is to do what we did here. We flattened out. Normally, you'll have a cross slope across here that's the same, about 2% either way to make it drain. And then you just kind of make this fit. Problem is with ADA, we have very strict slopes that we have to match. And you have to clear walkable path. So what we chose to do is against the building and against where the doorway entrance is for those business work was to make that our walkable path. So we pick the building edge where we tie into the building, so there's no additional work on the building side, that we put our sidewalk wide enough at 1.5%, which is the standard ADA slope, for 5 feet, or on this section it was 6 feet on here, which is wider than what your standard is. And the walkable path and that runs parallel to the street. We still, so there's no impact to the businesses, no impact to the buildings. And per ADA, you can have that parallel strip goes up to about 200 feet. Within you have what you call a turning space or a landing space, where a person can come up, access it, turn, and then walk that way. And we have that with the alleyway drop, and then the, well, of course, the pedestrian ramps at each corner, those are all compliant. So that's all in full compliance with current ADA regulations. The same thing is not, it's not quite a big deal on this side. The other option is what do you have to do with that other extra foot? So you can make your curbs a foot tall. You have a foot tall curb on one side, so it's a step, which is not technically compliant, but you can get away with it. And the other side, you have a shorter curb, so you kind of still have this thing. What I'm trying to do is not to you know, beat a dead horse here. There's not a great solution. So what we did here is, since we knew that this was not going to be a landscaping island, that these fillet strips, they're not on the walkable path. We have a very clear defined walkable path for people to get around the frontages of the businesses. And that's where we work to absorb that elevation difference between the two sides of the streets. So as you go through the entire downtown, this is probably the most extreme one there on that side. But across the entire square, as we go through here, there will be a bit of a slope on it, those internal fillets that are not technically walkable areas that'll be around. Is it going to be this extreme? No, but the other thing, if you're trying to eat up 6 inches and 2 feet, it's just, it looks steep. So.
Can you talk us through, well, maybe you're not ready for questions yet. Do you want to wait?
Sure. If you want
Can you just talk us through the discussion, how to come to that conclusion?
Sure. So we went through all the options we had.
With, I mean, like you as the engineering firm, you and the
Well, we
contractor?
reviewed these with the city staff who's involved with it.
Okay.
How we do it. I mean, cost was always an important part of this as well. You know, we knew what our budget was, it was set, and we held it tight as best we could to what, without greatly expanding the scope of what we needed to do. So you go through, I mean, just kind of how we talk it through, like what's the best scenario and what's that cost? And we kind of walk through all the scenarios. As we did the grading, this was determined to be the best path to address that design concern.
Was that ever brought to anyone on council at all, or just staff?
No, we didn't, yeah, we never brought it to council, no. And you know, I'll just jump in for a second and then it's like, because I remember the discussion, there was a few things on here. So like in this particular block, because we knew this one was going to kind of have that deep slope on the fillet strip. I've always called it fillet strip. I didn't realize it was fillet strip, but even the stormwater modeling that was done, I believe it just shows that, you know, with that, I don't remember what year event we're talking, but if we kept that road at the same elevation that it was previously at, which you can see here, it's kind of flat on what would be the north side and then pitched a little bit on the south side. If we left it like that, we were showing that we running the potential of water rushing into those businesses on a bad storm event. Obviously, we can't do that because that's another thing that we would, just the liability with that and designing a road that's not engineered appropriately is a serious thing. So, I mean, Chad mentioned, I don't even think we talked about buying businesses and knocking them down. I know you said it, but yeah, that was never a discussion, and obviously that was never going to happen. But we did discuss just through this process and figured it was the best option given everything we had, making sure that we're still giving the businesses ADA access and all that. And I'll even admit from our standpoint, you can look at this right here. This is great when you see it in person. Yeah, there's a few slopes over there, but as far as ADA access goes, we are completely compliant on ADA. The main thought is you have, the one handicap parking spot that we have there. You can go around to that ramp there on the street. That's what you should be doing for that, because that's the correct way to do that. And we've got straight ADA access across all the sidewalks.
In a world without ADA, and you can see it as you walk down the street, people would just put it in step. Yeah.
And that was just, we discussed that too. And I mean, that was just, to me, that was not a great option because you're just taking away ADA access to a business owner at that point.
My concern going forward is safety, because I went out and I looked at that slope and it is steep. And the sidewalk, you might be able to get someone in a wheelchair and a person walking side by side down it. But if that person in that wheelchair is on that outside edge and that front tire of that wheelchair goes off that edge, they're going in the street. I mean, is it something that we're gonna have to look at possibly putting in some kind of safety rail along there?
So.
And
we'll-
who's liable for injuries?
Yep, great question. So two things on that. First of all, the actual ADA walkable portion of that sidewalk you said was 6 feet? And what's requirement on that? Okay, so we're 2 feet over ADA requirement on that. I still get the point. Now liability, and I've talked to Doug about this. Doug had to leave here, so he can't answer this, but I can tell you what his answer was. If there is an engineer, if there is an engineer that designed this for a specific engineering reason, is the city liable? Let me back up. Anything that happens on a city sidewalk, the city's always going to have some component of liability. If I walk out in front of one of your houses and I slip and fall, the city can actually be liable for that. We've got codes in place that say really it's the property owner's responsibility to maintain those sidewalks and keep them in a good condition. So the property owner can also be liable, but the city's really never dissolved of any liability. However, as we look through this, again, to say, okay, well, there's a slope here and I'm going to sue the city because they put that slope there. Kind of able to back off that a little bit and say, well, there was a specific engineered reason why that slope was put in there. So that helps any argument if it would go to court or anything like that. So I don't want to say we're not liable at all, because really we're liable on anything that could happen on the sidewalks. But for that engineered design on this one, not specifically liable for that.
So basically it would fall to the business owner.
It depends on the situation. If it's something to where there's ice there, for example, something like that could potentially fall on the business owners for not maintaining it, just like it could.
So Charlie,
Charlie,
this is a great time to ask this question. Then you say with the ice. So that's a concern. They cannot use salt right now on the new sidewalk. And Christina and I measured it together that day, and that building owner came outside. He has concerns. I don't blame him. Somebody pulls up and they park there, and that's iced over that. And now I can't really read these numbers, and what Christina and I measured is probably not actual. There's a way to look at it, but we were looking at about a 7.5 inch drop. Now again, that's just us purely using a level and a measuring tape. So if we've got that covered in ice, and we can't let these business owners put salt down right now. My concern is if someone gets out of their car, they park there, they go up, they slip. I mean, we're the ones telling them they can't put the salt on, and it's concerning. I want to be really honest about that. It's really concerning to me in regards to that slope, because it's, I mean, outside of telling that business owner to put up caution tape, I don't know what else to do in this situation right now.
So let me, and I want to clarify something on that really quick, and I'm going to look to both you guys there on that. So we are not saying that you cannot use salt on there. What it is with the sidewalk curing, there is a point where if you put too much salt on it, it can become detrimental. So we've provided a guide to all the business owners that kind of explain that there's different types of salt you can use. But really, and when I've been asked this a few times by business owners, it's just use that salt that you have very conservatively. I say this in jest, I don't mean that anybody's doing this, but don't buy a bag of salt, tear it open and just dump the whole thing out, because that is going to be detrimental. Just make sure you're using it really kind of in the areas that are needed, because again, we understand that we can't tell you can't use salt at all. We don't have anything in code that says we can demand they don't use salt. We just want to make sure that they're aware of the salt that they should be using should be done a little bit conservatively. And really what it comes down to is that if there are any issues with the sidewalk in the future, that could come from excessive use of salt, that could be on the property owner to be liable for damages to the sidewalk. So it was kind of just something we were able to hopefully educate those business owners on a little bit.
The other option thing is it's not supposed to be the magnesium chloride or any of the high-speed quick melt salts. It's just be your standard table salts, which you can get from the water softener system, just a standard. Again, it's very sparingly to be used. It doesn't melt off instantly, but it's what protects it. The problem is it goes in, and as Charlie says, it causes spalling and leaking in the concrete for at least the first year. After the first year, it's a non-issue. It's just this winter.
So my question is, because I spoke with a business owner on the square today, and this was our exact conversation, was about the ice melt. And I guess Chamber sent out a letter to business owners and recommended like 3 different kinds. But the problem he ran into is there's no one in town that carries those 3 kinds. And so how are they supposed to, comply with that, even if they're willing, but they can't get that anywhere here locally.
Yeah, and that's,
So-
that's something I think we can look into. I know Jennifer White from Mulaney was kind of working with us a little bit on the onset of this and some regulations and I'll look at Brenda. I know she's back there, but I think she's got this guide as well too. And I don't know if you've spoken with her about purchasing any of those materials at all, but she expressed some interest early on trying to figure out exactly what we needed to do on the sidewalks. But yeah, past that, I don't know the correct answer to that. I don't know if there's any places on the south side of Des Moines that might offer those or not. I really don't know. Again, we're not telling business owners you can't use salt. We're just trying to provide guidance on the proper way to do maintenance on the sidewalk in the first year.
Now, those letters that the chamber sent out, did those go to every single business, even if the business wasn't part of the chamber?
Yeah.
Okay.
Couple of questions I had. You're talking mostly about the block between Buxton and B Street. Why did we have to have that same chamber, I think you called it, on the section between Buxton and Howard? Because I also, 2 weeks ago on Friday, when we had a little bit of a freezing mist, I was able to get down that okay, but the lady was following me out of the uncommon grounds. Almost slipped and fell and grabbed her and got her down there. And I think there is a big concern there. It looked to me like the elevation of Salem between Howard and Buxton changed significantly, because at one time the curb, obviously, you could drive up the curb, you had maybe a 6-inch curb, you had the sidewalk. There's nothing except the county on the other side, and I shouldn't say except, but there is the county on the other side. Did we do this, was this the same issue that you ran into, and that's between Howard and Salem?
Yes, except for the low side was the county side. And we coordinated our grading plans with the county project at the same time. And we set the elevations through there as we designed the roadway all the way through to connect through to.
How much did you drop the street from the original?
Oh, I believe it's approximately a foot lower. I'd have to check on where that is. It's a foot
You
lower.
couldn't have done it, to keep the same elevation of the street and still maintain a downward slope to that drain that's on the corner of Buxton and Salem. My concern is this, and I have done the same thing that all of us have probably talked about, is that we've got an issue there, talking to business owners and talking with some of the folks in the audience today. It is a big concern. And I don't know if that should be something that we need to remedy, or if it's something that we can avoid in the next phase of this project, because then you got half the square one way and half the square another. But I can tell you from my conversations with not all business owners, but a few, it is a big concern. And they're concerned about people falling and slipping. I actually had a former council member contact me via text message a couple days after we talked about this issue, and he confirmed it as well. And he actually saw somebody almost fall down again. I think we got a big issue. And so I think that there's got to be something, taking a look at how you do that elevation and why you're dropping the streets. I understand you need a slope, but you can slope that at the current elevation of the street, I would think. Am I wrong on that? I'm not an engineer, but am I wrong?
With the existing conditions that we had, we would have to control and enforce the county to bring their side up as well. Part of the elevation control is the county courthouse, and where their elevations they came in lower. So we again have to match on one side, on both sides. So that's one of the challenges that we had as we were designing this as well. We were able to split some of the difference. The other thing as we were trying to do is starting to the longitudinal run, or the throughway run on the slope. We were trying to make that tie in better outside of the square too, as Salem, as it ties into Buxton Howard, was elevated up, and so we were trying to match that and smooth those, so those are easier ins and outs of the square. So Unfortunately, grading is challenging and we don't have a perfect solution to it. Well, what we did is based on our conversations and we tried to pick the best solution we could at the best price. I think maybe some of the slipping issues at this first year was probably due that it's just icy and we need to.
It's Iowa, it's winter time, we're gonna have this, period. I mean, it's not just gonna be a one-time thing, it's gonna be an ongoing process.
Right, I think one of the limitations though, it would be the treatment of those surfaces as well. The limited treatment at this time as part of that is gonna be a challenge as well. So I think the general, where I would say that walking up this slope at it's gonna be a challenge for most people on the other parts of the square. Those are within a reasonable portion where I would
You
not.
say they're reasonable, but this lady was not that old. I mean, she was my age, and I guess I don't think myself that old, but the bottom line is she was ambulatory, she was agile. I've talked to some folks that have knee issues and other things, and there's concerns that they can't make that step. And I think it's not acceptable. I don't think, and listen, I'm all in favor of this project, but I think there's got to be some changes to that particular thing. And I got a couple of suggestions.
My question is don't we have access at the alleyway and at the end of the street?
We do.
I mean, that's ADA access, right?
I understand, but what's human nature? Human nature is to park your car, go directly in.
Right, I know, but how many, in the old days when that dirt was there, how many people tripped and fell on that too? I mean, it was a step up. I mean, it
Parallel parking now too. So.
was parallel parking before.
Well, yes, but now you've got a slant that's a foot high.
But
as
before
you're
you had
getting out of
dirt
that
that was a
car.
foot high. The dirt was, I mean, the slope, you can see where everything was before too. I mean, I get it. I tripped and slipped and fell on into my driveway because the snow plows pushed the snow up into my driveway. But so, I mean, things are gonna happen and I get it and I want to be empathetic to it, but I mean, what is your recommendation that we do?
That's what I'm looking for these folks.
Well, I mean, they gave us what their best option is. What is your recommendation?
My recommendation is that we do the best we can and absolutely do not include those sloped aspects. If there's any way that we can do that, and I understand what you're saying, is that the grade isn't, was there any, where was the discussion with the county on lowering their grade? I mean, that's the other question too.
They already did their thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we came into that, we were a year behind design.
Well, and we tried to work with them. We kept asking and they weren't willing to work with us. So,
Well, all I can say, John, and again, I'm not argumentative,
but you are, that's fine.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to explain that I have talked with the number, and I'm sure you have as well. But I've talked with a number of business owners. In fact, I had a conversation with one today. And she has a great concern about this. And I think that we, as a council, need to be respected of that and do the best we can with what we've got left in this project to figure that out. There was another concern. And that concern is the length of time it took to finish phase one and the impact of a lot of businesses in that particular case. When I was on the Zoom meeting back in March, I don't know who it was in your firm, the engineer that handled that Zoom meeting was saying it would be a 40-day process. I asked the question, what was the maximum time on that? The maximum time was an 80-day process. And I also asked the question, and this was a contractual issue that I discussed with staff, but I asked the question, when do liquidated damages kick in each phase if we don't meet those 80 days? And the answer from the engineer at that point in time was they kick in after 80 days. My understanding with this thing is that that was not part of the original contract. And now there's no liquidated damages for any phase until the end of the project in October of 2023. Is that correct?
That's incorrect.
November.
So
Steve, it's
before we
November.
get to that, that's a whole other thing. The last thing I would say about this is as well for slopes inside walkable areas, again, it's all controlled by the ADA Pro WAG. And so from a liability standpoint, you are in full compliance even with this slope. ADA has a provision in there where if there's a steep slope, this is a non-walkable surface. This is not designated as the walkable surface, so you're in full compliance. But you can run any slope at whatever percent you need, less than 10 feet, as long as there's a landing area that's compliant on either side of it. So by technical definition of these rules, all the way across the square, we are fully compliant because that is only about a 2-foot strip. Now, if someone feels like they're strong enough and they can walk up that, there's that, but there's the walkable path in and around that as well. For the rest of the slopes, and this is the absolute worst.
I was gonna say, do you anticipate more
No.
slopes like this going?
We will
forward?
have some that are run about at 8%, which is fully compliant with the ASHTO use, or up to about 10% as the max. Again, with those kind of slope designations, we are not saying that's the walkable path, and we are not saying that you should step up and walk on that. If you choose to do so, we would still fall within compliance slopes on those things. So we can always look at regrading things. At this point, it would be quite the endeavor, especially tying into what's existing. So,
Mayor, you have another question?
I do, and I apologize. I know I'm, not trying to beat the dead horse here. But okay, so I think how Christina worded it was that if you've got two people, so I'll just give you the reality. There's a person who lives on the corner down from Exit Realty, and she is in a wheelchair. So if you've got two people walking on this walkable path, however, if we were able to use that, however wide it is, as more of a sidewalk, that makes our sidewalks even wider, which is great. And, this gal is coming down on the same walkable path, and she has to scoot over, and one of her wheels slips, and she is falling down that. We're not necessarily about walking up the slope. It's the people slipping down off of the walkable path. And so, again, that's just our concern. And again, I understand that this is what we have, but it's not very friendly to our businesses, because this business, for instance, he has a business adjoining to it, which is a hub that Steve, we talked about in the meeting previously, encouraging people to go there. It is a place where lots of people are gathering for meetings and coming to study. And so if his concern is, well, I've got a lot of people coming in and out, and now I know it's my responsibility, does he eventually say, I'll go look somewhere else? It doesn't seem like we're being very friendly to those businesses that have these concerns. We really have to come back to them with a real solid, not just this was the cheapest option to fix it.
Well, I just more of a comment more than anything. Certainly liability, safety, all of those things. I respect you as engineers. I know that you did what you could do. The bottom line is, it's not what we sold to our public when we said we were going to do it, because we were going to extend the sidewalks, make them wider, which we did, but they're not walkable. So I'm not bringing up a problem that we aren't all aware of. I don't even know if I can ask for a solution, because I don't know what solution there is. We can't buy the buildings, we can't tear them down, we can't redo it, we can't raise the street. I don't know what the answer is. I think we're all disappointed. I can tell you're disappointed in how we had to do it. I know that it was kind of the lesser of all evils. And I don't want to get down in the weeds and lost in all of this, because it's a great project and we had to do it. And the infrastructure improvements that you made are outstanding. But we do need to figure something out. I don't know what the answer is. And then we're not going to come up with it tonight.
Sure.
But I think we need to have some possibilities at least. And maybe in the end, we'll say, well, we're not spending any more money on it. And maybe in the end, we'll say, well, we are going to spend more money on it, and we're going to make it a little bit better. I don't know, but because I'm not an engineer, I don't know what the options are.
You said one of the options was to do a curb that was more like a step, correct?
well, at this point, you would put that 6-inch curb to a 12-inch curb,
You'd
which
raise
would then
it
you
up
would have a
and then-
step off, fall off hazard where you would have to install radar.
But we would still fall within the ADA because we have the
Walkable.
walkable entrances and things.
No, I've been in several cities that have that where, because the landscaping around it, step, the railing, that kind of thing. Obviously, that's going to be an expense. But is that something then that we should consider for the rest of it, so that then at some point, if we want to go back and repair that on this phase, so that, it would be more pleasing. It would be, shouldn't be a fall hazard if there's a railing. I don't know.
Where are you saying put the railing at?
Well, if you
So
raise
just
the
in front of Exit
curb, you
Realty where
put
that's
steps down. Instead of.
We're at the elevation, the difference, the height between the sidewalk and the curb, that's 7 to 8 inches is about your normal step, which is what you would have.
Mhm.
Then you add that to that, it's 13, it's about 13 inches. So you'd have a step off hazard there that you would have to put a railing in. Is that a possibility? I mean, if the city would want us to direct us to do that, we can work with the contractor, get the price and put that together. I think that we would have to kind of merge that. That's definitely a possibility, a feasibility, if that's what the preference would be. We could definitely work on something, we'd have to look at that a little bit. I would like to say though, from what we designed and reported is exactly what we did in the comprehensive plan. We said big wider sidewalks in the internal parts of the square.
Right.
And then we would widen out the sidewalks. So, I mean, again, don't.
Right, and I'm not making a blanket statement that that's not what we saw,
Right,
but
so-
it certainly was a surprise to see it when it was, uncovered that,
So
we have this.
we more
flat
than double,
sidewalk.
we more than doubled the sidewalk widths coming into the square to get, so it's much more walkable coming in and out as we narrowed the roads as well. So, and as for having someone someone in a wheelchair going down the sidewalk, the requirement is only 4 foot and the able-bodied person for ADA is to walk around.
Yeah.
We do have a spot where they can pull over to the side. Again, in this situation, highly recommend that they go to the building side and not to the other side to let people go by. They should be able to pass side by side without any issue. So there should be nothing in there. Again, I understand the what ifs of this. If they decide to come on the left side. Again,
Yeah, but not actually.
following normal traffic patterns through being a right side drive country, most people pass right to left. Again, there is that outside. But again, if there's real desire on this for council to do something, we can definitely, probably I won't say the easiest, the best solution would be to put in basically a wall and run that flat across and then put railing across. So that would be probably the cheapest solution to get done. But then it would lead to some other rework as well.
And then the concern becomes as well too, is if the concern is there's 2 people walking down a sidewalk and they might slip down a slope, well, now you've just created an edge as well that they can
I
slip
think we're
down.
getting in the weeds on.
Yeah,
that
no, I agree.
Because, I mean, so my husband's here, we have 2 people in our family in wheelchairs. Okay, so when we push them or walk with them, if you have to walk behind them, you walk back. I mean, that's just like.
I'm not,
normal,
I'm not really talking about somebody walking with them. I'm talking cross,
Oh, no,
crossing
you
path.
there's room to cross, I mean, to meet, and, I mean, that, you just have to, when you deal with a handicap, that is really the least of your concerns, how you're gonna meet somebody on the street. That's just not, I mean, we could share many stories that are much more difficult than how you're gonna meet somebody on the street. So
Right.
I don't think that that's something we have to spend a lot of time on.
One thing that, I'm sorry, are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. A question that I think needs to be answered or at least addressed is the question about the length of time that it took to finish the
Yeah,
first phase of the project. So let's talk about that. And then unless there's any other questions for council, we'll wrap it up. So
That is a very good segue into what we talked about. So as we went into construction, we knew there was going to be some unknowns. We were going to find some stuff. To address I think on the initial call where we had the group call with change and addendum. So at the pre-bid phase of the thing, we met with some contractors and they were very concerned about the timeframes that they would have to work in the 80 days and some of those other options. After some discussions, we revised the contract through addendum to make the total time to be 150 days from the start of construction be substantially complete.
We didn't revise the contract, we revised the bid
The
package.
bid package, which would, yes, correct. So when that was accepted, that change was made. So initially, we were thinking it would be about 40 days per block. But based on the things that with the 3 blocks we were dealing with here would have been 120 days total. We expanded that time, gave them some additional time to 150 days. There is a liquidated damage per phase if they didn't make that 150 days of substantial completion. And going forward, each of one of the phases also has those same milestones for be substantially complete within a certain duration. We have those in the plans.
work days or calendar days.
Calendar days.
So it's 150 days. now.
Thanks, Steve, for clarifying that. It's 150 days now. So is that somewhere in the contract? Because I did not see that. All I saw in the contract was November 2023.
That is the total project completion date. So all the phases and all the work must be complete by that time. But yes, inside the construction drawings where we have a staging plan, we have that all broken out on one of the drawings for the calendar day requirements per phase.
But it's not in the contract then.
It is in the well, not to get semantical, the drawings are part of the contract. So that's part of what they work for. So it is a contractual obligation.
Thank you.
So
as part of this, when things come up that are unknowns or there's variations or changes, we work with the contractor to get those things resolved as possible. But those days generally have their lost time because of resolving some of these unknown issues that came up are then added to those days aren't counted against the contractor. One of the big issues that we have in here is we had an unknown storm sewer pipe that had basements that drained into it that were not that were totally unknown, were not on any survey or any GIS. We had to spend about 3 weeks to resolve those, hump those down, get some parts to connect that into the new storm sewer. We resolved that, but that was about a 3-week delay that was not charged to the contractor's calendar days. Another problem that we had, we knew of there were some basement openings at one of them, and we'll show a picture of that here coming up. In front of the glass, we knew that this vault existed here in front of Glass Creations. We knew we had to fill that, but when we got in there to explore it, there was materials containing asbestos, which takes some time to remediate, and the hole inside there was a large hole into the basement that had to be remediated as well.
So really quick, and I just want to cover on this because I don't know if council's aware, that is what is called a coal vault. And I think I've explained this to a few of you, but back in the, whatever year it was when people had coal-fired furnaces, there would actually be vehicles that would deliver coal to these businesses, dump them down into these chutes, and then they would take it into their basement and fire up their furnace. So just a great example of a historical feature that we're dealing with underneath these sidewalks.
So as part of this process, we had to go through, have a different contractor come, an asbestos specialist to come remediate, pull it out. We had some sampling as well as part of that. And then we had to bring on a structural engineer to evaluate and help us determine the path forward to how to fill this without filling in the basement as well. So that ended up being about a 4-week delay on top of that, as well as we walked through the process through the midsummer. So with those delays on top of it, that's why the construction lagged, and we had to have these issues resolved before we moved on. The other ones, so these were the big ones. On the corner sundry, there was also 2 additional window wells. One was a coal chute and one was an actual door into their basement.
3.
That was open. Is it 3?
Yeah, there's 3.
There's 3.
2 window wells and a door well.
2 window wells and a basement door that was still in place that had to be resolved before we could go back to our work. We worked with the building owner on that. He did his portion of it, filled in his basement, but then we also had to take time to fill that and get that up. That wasn't a significant delay, but it was 3 or 4 days at a time. So when these contractors are scheduling these things this tight, those kind of delays really stretch us out. So as part of that,
how many calendar days? I apologize. Did you have a count of how many calendar days it did take?
Per completion?
I can get it in a second.
I would say
I was looking at the contract date through December 31st, so I was just curious. I didn't know if you consider contract date or actually date they broke ground.
from the date they broke ground, I would say.
Yeah, the date they broke ground is when they started construction, is when the calendar days start.
So that's mid-June.
Good for.
I mean, I think regardless, we're well over 150. And I think, yes, we're, again, not beating it, but I think we know, we just have to be very conscious of in the next steps, ensuring we are staying on track and getting that done. And one of the things I'd really like to see done is that we don't have fences up and streets torn up when the courthouse opens on July 7th. We want to be good partners. It's a grand opening for them. And it would be very important that we have our streets ready if we're going to break ground in the spring now. It's obviously a conversation everyone has a say in, but I think if we have to be good partners with our courthouse and our county.
One other thing we're also, and you folks are knowing this as well, you're dealing with older buildings around the square. There's a little bit of an advantage on each side. You do have a few newer buildings that are the may not have those issues, but I can tell you probably on the north side, we had a building collapse over there, so at one time, and so there are gonna be some structural issues, there are gonna be things you're gonna run into. And it's gonna be critical for a lot of those businesses to make sure that they can have a Christmas holiday and things like that. And make sure we get that open and taken care of. So these are all things that you need to be aware of. I'm sure you are, but just be aware of it.
Well, I think we navigated that remarkably well for what we didn't know starting it this year. I think, and Brenda, to pull back on you with what the contract had to do to be open for wine, bitches and brews. For the Black Friday events through the square, we weren't able to open it fully to the square car traffic, but as work was going on, we would clean up the site and get it open for pedestrian access in and through that. We actually pushed the contractor to open up a portion of the square there to make sure that it was open for all the Thursday shopping days. So also additionally, our contractor provided the site lights, the big spotlights out there at his own expense to help facilitate that. So our contractor has been a great partner. He's worked very, very hard to get this done. Going back to we awarded substantial completion when that was negotiated, that was discussed, that when they have pedestrian access back to the businesses and the pavement all done with the other, we allowed some closure still to finish some of the internal work as that as well. But with the delays and everything else, the contractor did not exceed their contracted 100 calendar days based on our accounts. So that said, they've worked very hard to roll with the punches and accommodate the businesses and work with the citizens as well. So I feel like based on doing this for a while, that they did everything in their power to make it happen within the appropriate time frame as quickly as they could.
And I think Chad's going to cover some of the kind of next steps for next year, because we did have kind of what's the correct word? Just a breakdown of kind of what happened last week on this. And, with the help of Brenda and the city, we did kind of we let the contractor realize that, some of the stuff that happened this year, we can't have it happen again next year. And they've understood that as well too. So they've got some things that they're going to be changing next year as far as timing. I think Chad's going to cover that.
So I think most of the underground solutions for openings into buildings, unknown pipes, we have a process how quickly we can turn around using city staff to help scan the pipes, making sure that we have connections and how we make those connections as quickly as possible.
And sorry, I was going to say, and Brenda's done a great job with asking our business owners, go into your basements, see what you have. If you notice anything crazy, let us know, because the sooner we know about it, the quicker we're going to have these issues resolved and be able to get these projects done faster. So I know we've heard from a few of them and we're looking into that. But again, if anybody's listening, just please check your basements, let us know, because it's really going to help our schedule.
For sure. So we have those solutions for those openings and some of those other pipes. One of the other things that we learned here is, so if you look at the schedule here, to pour the sidewalks back in between B and Buxton on Salem, it took 28 days. Again, we were being very careful to make sure only one access was closed, working with the businesses to make sure that they had full access at all times. And it really slowed down the project. As we step forward on Buxton, and then the portion of Salem between Buxton and Howard, we knocked out bigger chunks of sidewalks, worked with provided plenty of notice to all the businesses, encouraged them to use their rear entrances, and it went much quicker between the two of those things. And so going forward, we're going to work again, follow that second approach where we're going to remove more sidewalk, pour back faster, because that way, once the sidewalk gets poured, it's usually back open within 24 hours of the concrete being done. Sometimes we have to close it for some staining with some of the color stuff and some of the color patches, but we're going to push that forward to not be lagging on the sidewalk, I guess we get towards the end of this first phase. So that's a big step. Talked about the vault and the asbestos. So going forward, this is kind of what we're knowing. Again, construction schedules are very variable. We know we have our deadlines. The contractor's being very conscious of not tearing out too much without putting it back. So what we know for sure for next year, for starting here, and the start date that we have, depending on weather, everything is weather dependent, is starting in March, is to do Howard Street between Ashland and Salem, and then finish Salem between Howard and First. That's the goal. We're expecting that to go a little bit faster. The sewers are not as deep. It's only half the pipe on one end. This access way through here is clear of county things, so we can go fully proceed. That was one of the restrictions we had with the county trailers being there that stopped us from working on that. So with that all out of the way, we are fully clear to go through it and put in what we need to do. The utility work is minimal on this stretch where we're just sawing stone shore. There's no water main, no other work, so that should go relatively quickly. The hope is to complete all the rest of the surface improvements next year. Again, that's a big ask. Weather has to be perfect. It won't go well for the farmers. If we get the weather we need to get that done. So we are going to get at least, I'm anticipating at least 4 blocks done, if not all 5. One of the challenges we have, again, working with the county, their move-in dates and their startup dates. They need this portion of Ashland open, the center block between Buxton and Howard as they move in things. They're going to need that open to about July, beginning of July, as they start moving all their equipment and people in. And so at this time, we're going to have that totally open for them to move in, again, delaying our start on that, but again, trying to make it easy on them. We're hopeful.
Which part was that? I apologize. Did you say that? Which part? So they're going to start moving in actually, according to the latest meeting that I have been in, they'll start moving in March. Their dock is on Ashland. They should all be moved in. Their anticipated open day is July 7th. I mean, so when you're talking summer, are we talking like mid-June when summer really comes? Because I don't foresee their moving holding us up at all. One of my questions is how will they access their dock when we are working on Ashland? Because they will have deliveries and
We've gone through this with the county multiple times.
Okay.
So the goal is to keep Ashland open while they are moving in. They anticipate that March, April, and May kind of move-in date. Then at that point, we'll work to get Howard open by July 1. Our hope is actually it is done a little bit before July 1 even, but the contractor knows the goal is to have that front portion open by the time it opens. What we're going to do after those blocks are done is kind of evaluate where we're at in timing and what we think we can do moving forward. Reason for that is we need to make sure that the roads are not closed over, essentially between Thanksgiving and Christmas again. So really it's going to kind of be a wait and see approach. We know we're going to get these 2 blocks right away. We're going to keep Ashland open so they can move in. But at some point we're going to have to switch over and do Ashland, and the county is aware of that. And we've let them know, when we do Ashland, that loading dock area is not going to be accessible. However, they've got their Sallyport entrance off of Buxton that is still accessible. And in talking with them, they feel that they can access everything they need through that portion.
Thanks, Charlie.
The conversations we had from the beginning.
Mhm.
Part of our phasing was based to allow them to keep their trailers where they were. And we coordinated from the very beginning that if possible, if we're running late, we would work on that section of Howard between Ashland and Salem. And we would try to get it open for their grand opening, but that might not be possible as we try to work around it.
And they might want to remember that our businesses were very frustrated by the trailers remaining there. So that might be a time for them to get a little grace, because I'm concerned about, I appreciate that everybody's working with the county, but we have unhappy businesses that lost a Christmas season. That's 50% of their income. Right? We can't do that again. So the county has to concede.
And they do have full access to their site, the south on Salem there. They have the ADA accessible cut, they have parking. They have the ramp connecting to the sidewalk, so you can access the front of the building from that side. So that's some of the concessions we made early on in the planning process. So then after those phases are done, the alleyways again are kind of been put on the back burner a little bit, trying to get this rest of the street open. As we work forward, we'll try to work those in as well we can. We might do portions of them where we have to connect the water main through and some of those other options, but the alleyways are tighter and difficult, and we really want to have front access open to the businesses first before we start resolving some of those other challenges in the alleyways. Again, I think I need to say our contractor, weather dependent, the process will go, but we are going to do as much as we can as quickly as we can.
I'm sorry, on that real quick, if we look at it from March 1st to July 1st, that's 122 days. And 150 is what we're looking for on that Howard section.
No, each phase is different. So based on our plans, this is actually, so our phasing got messed up a little bit. This is phase 3 and phase 5 of those 2 sections, the way we broke those out. And I would have to look at the days. I believe phase
40 or 45 each.
They're 45 days each, so we're looking at 90 days, calendar days between the 2 of them.
Okay, thank you for that.
And just again, I think we've alluded to it in this presentation. Phase 1 was by far the most complicated phase of this project. We knew it. It was the first phase we did. There was a lot of learning that went on through this phase, but from a pure infrastructure standpoint, by far the most complicated phase of this project. So everything gets a little bit easier from here on out.
A little shallower, a little more straightforward, smaller chunks as well. Monuments, we pulled those from the construction contract before we signed the contract. So those, we are rebidding those currently. Those are on the street. We expect bids back on February 1st. So we will have a bid opening here February 1st. We've had some interest from contractors, a lot of specialties. It's kind of a unique project. There's a lot of specialty work between fabricated steel, masons, concrete. So we've been working with contractors and informing people. We try to help inform teams to go after this. So we've had a lot of plans pulled. We're hopeful that we'll get favorable bids here. And these the work on these will be done. They'll coordinate this. It'll probably be closer to winter time, if not next year when those are actually built and installed, just due to the phasing and to stay out of the way of the contract. So we have quite a large window on that to get when those are to be installed. So that was a very, very in-depth review of phase 1 and kind of where we've gone. So I don't know if you have any other further questions. You good?
I've got just one short one here, Chad. So you were talking about the aggregate between the pavers. Is that going to be like a yearly maintenance that needs to be done?
No, it's not a yearly. They normally, I think, depending on, it's a 3 to 5, depending on need, where you would go in back and then throw some more down and sweep it back in. It really is just the top inch, maybe at most, where it gets fouled with some grit or whatever it might be somewhere else. So it would really depend on as street crews are going around, they see it not draining right in a whole section, it would clean. I've actually seen the pavers clean themselves. They kind of, the way the water flows across them, they kind of are very, I mean, as long as there's not big chunks of garbage in it, they generally are very easy. And you don't have to do it.
And the SRF grant requires that we do, is it a 20 or 30 year maintenance plan? I don't remember what that was.
For the life of the.
For the life.
Okay, I thought it.
We had a minimum of 10 years.
Yep. So we've got a maintenance plan that we had to submit to SRF as part of the SRF funding that we have in place. AP's department has bought about 100 or we're not bought, but we're looking at about $108,000 worth of equipment to help these, a lot of which is going to be offset by the grant funding. The grant funding that we got actually can pay for some of that equipment. So
What's the expected life of the pavers?
The life is what you would normally expect for a normal concrete road. 30 years. It's been kind of questionable soils, but with all the rock and stuff, we would expect those to be 50 or 100-year pavers.
and if you're ever, I mean, you can't, it's hard to do now, but I've seen it. They're packed in there. They're constructed well. They're in there pretty well. We're gonna have a couple pallets of brick that we'll have just to make sure that they match and everything like that, because we do know occasionally you're probably gonna have a few break here and there, but from a snowplowing operation, I know we've had 2 events that we've taken care of so far, and I think everything's gone pretty good on them, and I don't think we've noticed anything that's happened. So it's always been a fear I know you hear is, oh, snowplows are gonna really tear those things up, and it's really not accurate.
They look great. They really do. So I just wanted to add that in there. I really think they look really nice, and it does add a really good aesthetic to it. I did have one question on the change orders, and I apologize. These are probably have been gone over before, but being new, if you could just run through those 4 change orders, it's, close to $88,000. And I know that phase 1, the most intensive part. So just for a better understanding for myself.
Yep, I've got all the totals here. It's about $15,000 was the first one. That was a lot of stuff to do. So when we got started in the project, we amended some of our signage that we put up because we were noticing pedestrians were having a little bit of a confusing time getting around. So we purchased, I don't even know what was it, some 2025 pedestrian access open signs that we placed all over it, and there was a cost associated with that. I don't know the exact cost. But then we also had some on the mailbox construction, a few change orders on that. Just due to, I don't know exactly what it was, but I know we had 2 different engineering firms designing some stuff and just matching everything up. It took a change order. The second one was on, there was a water main thing, a portion of it, and I know the water department had us change something on one of the water mains. And
with the connections, with the connections where the street they want us to change, we had a much simpler connection and they had to put another fitting and valve. And
okay.
They can
And then there were some services, and I think you talked about the lead services that we had, and there was a change order to repair those lead services that were in there. You mentioned the storm sewer issue we had there at the intersection of Buxton and Salem. We had to run a temporary storm sewer there just to make sure everything worked through that, and that was about a $24,000 change order. Then the actual fix to that stormwater issue that we had was about a $20,000 change order to get the permanent fix in on that to make sure we were taking care and draining those basements appropriately. The last one had to do with a manhole adjustment from the county's project into ours. There was a manhole that they placed in there, and we needed to adjust it to get it down to the proper grade so we could have a driveway entrance out of there. And then we also bought water meter pits for let me back up. So what we're doing on each of the corners of the square is we're putting hose, essentially hose connections there. So our Parks and Rec department, when they're watering all the plantings through there, rather than using a truck to fill with water, go out, fill everything, and then have to go back 3 or 4 times, fill it up and go back out, we're going to actually have hose connections within the square. As part of that, we designed all of that. That was fine. As we talked through with IMU, we decided that we actually wanted to meter each one of those connections so IMU could accurately know how much water was actually coming out of those, just so they can keep records. Because for my opinion, especially from the city standpoint, but I think IMU would agree, we want to be able to track consumption coming out of the water plant and what is all actually going through meters. That kind of helps them know if there's a leak somewhere, a big leak or anything like that. So water meters aren't cheap, and the actual water meter pits themselves are pretty expensive. So that was about a $26,000 change order. But please note on that those were 4 water meter pits, and that's going to go on each of the corners of the square. So we actually purchased those ahead of time for the rest of the phases.
Thanks, Charlie.
Any other questions?
Appreciate it.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I'd like to say we really appreciate the city's involvement in this. Charlie, AP has been a fantastic friend as well as we work with the contractor. They really appreciate the involvement and the directions that we've got. It's been a good project. It's run well, even with all the challenges. So it's been a delight to work with them as we work together to get this done. It's been good. We expect the same kind of results and process going forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nope, I don't have anything else on that. We're done. We've got one more AP's presentation.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry, Yep.
What's the score, John?
22-22. Minute 58 left in the half.
I'm used to that.
It was before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
58?
Yeah.
It was like 51, 49, or 47 or something.
47. Yeah, they scored that in the last.
Hey, Charlie, why he's setting that up. Could you or Jackie send me that full contract with the drawings for the streetscape? Just whenever you have time, obviously not anytime, doesn't have to be right now. What?
You want the actual plans and contract?
Yeah, if you could.
I'm gonna have to get it to you some other way because they're incredibly large documents. So
Yeah.
Okay, yep, no, that's no problem.
when you get back, let's talk about it and I can get them to you.
Okay, because I have just stuff that I had from the bid, but just kind of, I like to read
Yeah,
that
no,
stuff.
the
I know I'm a little bit of a
plans
weirdo.
never Uploaded to any internet site or anything like that, just because they're hundreds of megabytes.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Problem. There you got it.
Right, also, it's about 9 o'clock, so I'll start my presentation maybe an hour or two.
Okay, Pete, we'll see you later.
Try to breeze through some of the slides. So I'm following up with my last presentation that I made in September, October. I want to give a quick update. So some of the slides may repeat from the last one, but just for, I just wanted to bring some of the topics here. So my presentation is broken into 4 different parts. One is I just wanted to show you what my department activities comprise, what's our capital improvement plan look like now, and then I wanted to follow up with Andy's presentation from last time, where one of the things that I want to show is where our street staffing needs are standing and what our assessments are. And then finally, I want to summarize and show you how we do speed limit and stop signs, what are our regulations and policy for having speed limit and stop signs. So in summary, we are responsible for the pavement and stormwater infrastructure. We are also responsible for signs, signals, pavement markings, street sweeper operations, snow removals, and finally the brush facility operations. These charts kind of show where we are in terms of lane miles and our drainage infrastructure and where our pavement condition index is standing currently. And I will go in detail in some of these slides here. Our current organization is we have 6 full-time employees of the street division reporting to the public works director, and I report to the city manager. We have a few seasonal employees and 1 part-time street sweeper operator who also helps with the snow plowing. The only challenge with the seasonal employees we have is, for instance, we have 3 or 4 seasonal employees in the summertime. We never get that filled just because nobody applies for that position. So it all ultimately falls into the streets division employees' workload. So for the brush facility monitor too, we have requirement for 2, but last year we just had 1. So we struggle with filling them up just because of the low number of hours that's associated with this position. And then we have discussed about merging the parks division with the streets at one time. So we still continue to have that discussion. And then at the later part of my presentation, I will be sharing you with what our staffing needs assessments are standing currently. Just wanted to share this chart with you on how we operate on a yearly basis, on where we prioritize, where we have our prioritized activities, and what we do for most part of the year, which varies from pavement repairs to street sweeper operations. So this chart kind of shows where we're standing with our operations. Some of the achievements that we had in the last 2 years, I wanted to reflect on our annual achievements that the street division has accomplished. And these are just some of the activities, and some of the things that I want to highlight is the pavement repairs. We have more than 3,500 feet, actually 3,800 feet of travel lanes. We have repaired more than 14 sidewalk ramps, and we have put more than 170,000 pounds of cold mix asphalt for pothole repairs. Again, what we strive towards in the street division is we strive towards making sure that we respond within 4 hours of service calls. We strive towards making sure the snow removal is completed within 24 hours of snowfall. We make sure the roads are accessible to all motorists. We also make sure that we respond to pothole complaints within 24 hours. The second part of my presentation is regarding the capital improvement plan. And one of the things that I would like to, again, the capital improvement plan is our long-term plan, 5-year plan, which is basically, we have decided, we have basically reached on the capital improvement plan based on the data-driven decision that we have invested on, the city has invested on for the streets and for the stormwater GIS that we are collecting. We have invested in basically a data-driven decision-making process where we have collected the pavement condition index that dictates how your 5-year plan is going to look like. We are currently in the process of collecting the data for the stormwater infrastructure. Once that's completed, it will give you an assessment of your infrastructure for both the pavement as well as the stormwater infrastructure. So I just wanted to show you a comparison of, and some of you have seen this slide before, where we stand in terms of Indianola and where our comparable cities are standing, and an MPO average for the pavement condition index. The average pavement condition index is shown in blue bars here. The city of Indianola is better than the average MPO average. So we want to keep that. We want to keep that pavement condition index from going back. So we have to invest in our road infrastructure we've got. So I have next slide, but basically where we want to do is continue to invest in our pavement infrastructure here. I wanted to recap on some of our capital projects that's completed, and wanted to give a recap of them. So one of the two of the projects that I totally completed right now is the Iowa Avenue project, which was partly through an EDA grant, federal grant that we have received. And then we had the ICAP signal timing project where it was mostly invested by the Iowa DOT had it funded for this project. We had done before and after studies for the traffic delays for the traffic signal progression. It has significantly reduced the travel time. When you see this, you may see some delay on the side streets. That's because the main street gets the main priority on progression of the traffic. Now the part for the Iowa Avenue, it kind of helps with our industrial complex. It kind of helps with that growth there on that area. We have also substantially completed the Valley Place, which had failed. The pavement there had failed. We have substantially completed it. The only portion that's remaining is the seeding, which we are hoping to complete it in spring of this year. And then what you had approved today is the council has approved scheduling the bid opening date and the public hearing for the bids. The scope of the work is primarily on Boston Avenue between D Street and F Street. The pavement, and not only the pavement infrastructure, but also the utility infrastructure, including water mains, stormwater infrastructure, and sanitary sewer has failed, or it's extremely old there. So this is our main priority here. As far as the Clinton, same issue over here. The stormwater and the water main has failed, or it does not accommodate for that. So the Clinton Avenue we plan to take it as a bid alternate, provided we have enough funding. These both projects will be funded through a COVID relief fund, which is the American Rescue Plan Act funding that we have received roughly about $2.3 million. So we plan to use all of that money towards these two projects. In case if the bids come in higher, we may have to have a discussion and may not be able to do this project, but we're keeping our fingers crossed. So what else is going on? Hillcrest Avenue Council had approved the design work for that. Snyder is currently doing the project on that. The scope of the work is again from 4th Street to 14th Street. So the design work is going on currently. This is not partly, 80% of this project is, most of the project is being funded by the Iowa DOT surface transportation block grant. So it's being, it has to be bid through the, is that correct? It has to be bid through the DOT process, so. So where we are looking at numbers, it's a $4.5 million project. The design work is still going on. Then we also have the K Street project, which is from Highway 92 to 17th Avenue. So the same thing on this, the design work is currently going on, and the only thing different on this project is basically this project includes special assessments. So during the mid part of this year, you should see some public hearings and special assessments associated with this project. So once again, what's our goal is to make sure we have a pavement condition index of 70. We have to maintain that. We have currently, our target is we spend about $350,000 on pavement infrastructure in addition to other projects that we get, for instance, K Street and Hillcrest Avenue. We have those two projects, which is either being through debt service levy or through DOT funding, for instance. So the council has also approved the stormwater rates, which is why we got about. Previously, we used to get $250,000 annually for stormwater infrastructure. Because of raising the rates, we are now able to do projects which is up to $600,000 every year, which is why we should be able to, the engineering consultant firm who had done the study for this basically recognized with the previous $250,000 per year, we would take about 20 plus years to complete all the stormwater projects. With the stormwater rate increase, we should be able to do our priority projects in the next 9 years. So where is our needs? We currently also have a need. I know Dave had done a presentation previously where we had shown the need for $1.5 million for pavement maintenance. And we still have a need for that. When I say this, we currently don't have the funds for it, but we have a need for that to invest towards that maintaining of our pavement infrastructure. So we in addition to that, I've told about the $1.5 million. There's also a backlog of $20 million of street projects that's needed. We currently have fulfilled the requirement for the stormwater infrastructure by investing $600,000 every year. And then finally, on the unmet need, there's also the transportation infrastructure. We have these needs. These color codes are basically showing the pavement condition index, what our needs is for the street infrastructure. And then one of the things that Dave had previously done on presentations is we talked about doing asphalt overlays, which kind of extends the life of the pavement. You do an overlay when the pavement condition is in good to fair condition. Before it starts failing, you do that overlay and try to extend the life of the pavement. It's substantially, it's cost effective to do an overlay project when compared to completely reconstructed project. It's maybe 1/3 the cost of the price of reconstruction. So it's effective when you do it at the right time. So again, this chart kind of shows you where you have to do the asphalt overlay preservation. When it's in fair condition, you kind of invest towards maintenance items. And when it fails, you have to invest in reconstruction, and the cost of the reconstruction is substantially higher when compared to preservation techniques. Some of the roads that were recognized by Dave is basically for asphalt overlay. I just wanted to graphically show those roads here. My third part of the presentation is regarding the street staffing needs assessments for the streets division. We had compared cities which has got comparable population and road miles. And you can see some of the cities we had compared with the city of Indianola. We have roughly about 76 miles, and we have 8.7 employees, that including all the seasonal employees. When compared to other cities, we have the lowest number of employees for the street division. And you can see where we are standing in terms of street maintenance. We just have, with street staffing strength is just 7.42. On my next table, I'll be showing you what the average for the cities is. the average, so one of the things that we have seen compared is based on the road miles, how many employees does every city have, and how much road mile does each and every employee serve. So based on what we found is that each employee from Indianola is serving roughly about 10 miles when compared to the average street maintenance is about 7 miles. So we are doing more than what the other cities are doing. So where our needs are for street maintenance is we have a need for 3.5 more employees needed for the street division alone. Now, when we look at the snow removal, other cities require other departments to come and require them to help with the snow removal operations. Like I said about the shifts that we do, that needs more employees to do the snow removal operations. So you can see that we have a need of 7 more employees to fulfill to match with other cities. So with that being said, it's not feasible to request for that. So we are requesting for 2 new entry-level positions associated with the streets division, which will total up to about, with benefits and everything, it's coming to about $186,000 every year. The salary will be roughly about $56,000 plus benefits. We're also requesting to promote one of the foreman position to crew leader, so he'll be able to manage on-site construction and activities, where we are roughly estimating $9,000 in the next 3 fiscal years for this promotion that we are looking for. So that's my third part, and then my final part is regarding informing about the speed limit and the stop signs. I just wanted to bring to your attention recently, within the last month or so, we have received multiple complaints on speed limits, stop signs. I just wanted to give you a summary of what we do in terms of policy, where we stand, and how do we set the speed limits. It's not just an arbitrary number that we set on roads. So we kind of work with the police department, and then we do a speed study for setting up a speed limit. So when you set up the speed limit, it's basically it's not just a number that you put. It's basically what road conditions is a motorist driving on. Does he feel safe? Like on an interstate, they feel safe driving at 70 miles per hour. When you come to a residential setting with curb and gutter, they slow down and basically try to get at 25, 30 miles per hour. So when we do the speed study, we try to gauge what is the majority of the drivers doing. And then in addition to that, we also look at the road characteristics, such as the width, visibility, the horizontal alignment, vertical alignment, any visibility concerns. Also the type of the roadway, whether it's a residential, arterial, or collector roadway, the amount of traffic, accident data, we look into overall, and then decide what speed limit is best justified for that roadway. So some of the concerns that we will be seeing is basically on school zones, work zones, and residential streets is going to be the majority of your concerns on the speed limits. Now, when we do this, I know the police department helps with this education program where you see these portable signs that police department frequently puts and tells you when the driver is speeding. That's kind of education. They also help with the enforcements, and we come in to help with the engineering to gauge what speed limits is best suited. So now reducing, let's say the speed limit is on an interstate at 70. If you reduce it to 25, nobody's going to comply by it. So reducing speed limits is not the solution because it causes more non-compliance and violations, and more enforcements are needed. So for instance, recently we got a complaint about South Y Street. South Y Street is north of 92. It's totally different kind of road characteristics compared to south of 92. So I know police department recently did a speed study, and the 85th percentile speed is coming to roughly about 40 miles an hour, even though the posted speed limit is 35. Now, having said that, the road is narrower. South side of 92, it's 26 feet wide, compared to north of 92, it's 31 feet wide. and it's more industrial and farming kind of road. Whereas south of 92, it goes nowhere. It's a dead end, mostly serving residential streets. So we have not yet finished the study, but we are inclined towards reducing the speed limit to 25 miles per hour, even though the 85th percentile speed is at 40 miles per hour. So we are trying to gauge and see how that will work. So that's the process we take on the speed limits. My next portion is about the stop signs. Again, we use a nationally recognized guideline called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Device, which is basically developed by the FHWA, Federal Highway Authority. Now, some of the factors that we look for a traffic study for multi-way stop or a two-way stop is basically based on traffic volume, speed limits, the geometrics of the intersections, such as visibility, the slopes, vertical slopes, again, all of those factors, crash history, all of those factors, we look into that, and basically based on the volumes and the criteria set in the MEDCD, we decide whether a two-way stop is warranted or a four-way stop is warranted. What if we don't do, now again, what if we install four-way stops at every intersection, then what's going to happen is, again, same thing, increase in violation, because what happens is people, motorists try to do a rollover stop and try to catch up for their lost time. So what happens is the speeding, it shows, so studies have shown that stop sign doesn't reduce the speed limit, but I just wanted to point that out, what we do for multi-way stops and two-way stops. Now, during the process in the last 2 or 3 weeks, one of the complaints was that near McCord Park is, we received a complaint that we have a few uncontrolled intersections. Now, once I received that complaint, we did a complete assessment of all the citywide streets and came to know that we have roughly about 88 intersections that is currently uncontrolled and doesn't have any stop sign. So we did a quick assessment on what's gonna take us to either make it a two-way stop or a two-way yield control, some kind of a control that we can do. It's gonna cost us roughly about 15,000 in materials and roughly about 175 hours of labor. It's gonna take us about 2 years to do that. The first thing is I will be going out with staff and assessing each and every intersection and basically setting up whether it's a stop, two-way stop control or four-way stop, or whether it's a yield stop as yield control is needed. So it'll take a 2-year period for us to put some kind of a control. Currently, the staff has been doing the changes in terms of speed limit, in terms of stop sign control. I want to point out that even though the staff does these changes, the city council has the final say on it. If you decide to basically change the control from a two-way stop to a four-way stop, you have the final say on it, and you can override the staff decision and direct us to change the controls or speed limits at any location, anytime you want. So with this, try to finish my presentation and have any questions?
Thank you, Andrew. It was
Thank
very
you.
thorough.
And I will, I'll email you some questions, but we won't continue this on tonight. Does anybody have any other questions they want to ask AP?
I have a couple for follow-up too, but I'll email you.
Yeah, okay. That might just fit that. Motion to adjourn now.
We don't, just stop it.
Say goodbye.
Thank you.
Hey, when you guys send those questions in, can
No.
you copy everybody? Just send them out to everybody, so that way we can see the questions.